Good. Is it afternoon, everyone? It's afternoon here, anyways, in Washington. How's everybody doing? We are going to have a special event going on today. We have Wendy in the house. DK is here to join me, of course, and we're going to be talking with Wendy today. She is down in California. She's getting ready to make some IMO3, and we thought we'd bring you all along. So welcome, DK. Wendy, welcome. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you being here today. How are you?
Doing good. We've got a crazy heat here in California. PG&E has let us know that between 3 p.m. and 10 p.m. every day this week, we may have rolling blackouts across the entire state, which is kind of nuts. But after last year's fires, I guess it kind of makes sense. So I'm out here going to be sweating with you guys. No, I'm going to be sweating. You guys will be with me while I'm sweating. And we'll be making yeah. You can just cheer me on. Go, Wendy,
we'll cheer you on, Wendy. Go, Wendy, go, go, go.
Hey, Doodle, come. No, Snickerdoodle. My dog was just about to take my phone down. He's like, what you doing, Mom? I'll take that phone. Hi, buddies.
Moral support.
Hi, buddies.
Moral support.
Yeah. Gotta get the puppy love.
There we go. Got to get the puppy love in today.
They're going to be really upset with me because they're not going to have access to this little area after this today. I'll be putting up a little dog fence. So you guys can't get in here and hide underneath the garbage area and be cool. I'm sorry. All right. So let's get right to it because this is going to be a bit of a process. It takes about half an hour-ish, sometimes more, to make IMO3. And what we're doing is we are basically taking our an IMO2 collection, and for the sorry, that's my dog. Snickerdoodle, doodle bop. No, go on, buddy. Go on. You can't. Don't eat the phone. No. Okay.
Okay.
So this is an old garden shed that I am taking over to be a K&F fermentation station type thing. So Snickerdoodle, stop it.
The fermentation station.
No. Fermentation. Yeah, I've got a big sign up, right? All right. So for people who don't know, IMO1 is basically a collection of indigenous microorganisms that we get from the woods, from undisturbed areas. You can also do field IMO collections. But the idea being that you want it to be somewhere that hasn't had a lot of human interaction. So these are my IMO1 boxes. I have gotten, my first ones were like super nice and I sanded them and I put latches on and hinges. And as time goes on, you're like, it's a box for molding rice in, basically. So I've gotten down to this. These are really simple. It's a cedar board. There's large holes on the bottom. There's a row of small holes along here. I'll put a secondary row in because this one does need one more. I have little loops that were made for hanging pictures.
Yeah.
And the reason why I put these in is so that I can then very quickly and easily use twine and loop up and over and down to secure the lid. This also would have a piece of paper towel stapled to the edge before it goes out into the field. So we're not going to go too much into IMO1 right now because that's a whole nother subject, but I did want to show you guys a box.
I like it. Keep it simple, Wendy. I like it. I like the box. Good job.
Doesn't have to be anything fancy schmancy. It's just a box. And then this is IMO2. So basically what we do is we take the inoculated rice and we mix it 1-to-1 with weight with brown sugar. And it becomes the shelf-stable IMO2 collection. So this was one, can't see that really, but anyway, this was one that I just did. This was actually a trial on brown Calrose rice, and it worked really well. So I was really happy with that. So now we move on to IMO3. And IMO3 is basically, we're taking our IMO2 inoculations and we're going to expand them onto food. And what the fungi eat is they need carbon and they need carbohydrate. So for a carbohydrate source today, I have a very large bag. This is a 50-pound sack of barley. So generally we're going to use some type of grain. This is a livestock grain. So it's, I've tried barley, I've tried oats. We found, this is a whole barley. So the only thing we found with this type of thing is that quite often we do kind of have some issues with it starting to sprout. Not a big deal. Just make sure you dry it out entirely, which it should dry out by the time you're done anyway, because otherwise if you put it in your garden, you might end up with barley grass, which, cut it down, make a nice cover crop. Not that big of a deal either, but just kind of, a lot of people are moving towards a crushed grain rather than a whole grain. But
so you got someone asking a question already. How much does a 50-pound bag cost, Wendy?
So it depends. If you go to a feed store, you can usually get them pretty cheap. They're not super expensive. And if you go and you like look for a sale, I think this was like maybe $20, but I think it was even less than that. I do try to get organic grains just for a variety of reasons, you know, a million of which I'm sure you can imagine.
Oh, yes.
But, you know, you don't necessarily have to. Again, if it's been sprayed with glyphosate, though, I can't imagine it being a great source of food for your fungi. So, you know, spend a few bucks
maybe
extra.
Maybe a seed store, maybe a seed supply might also maybe have something like that.
Yeah, you can get it at garden stores often, but again, it's really
just give
used
some people some ideas what to use.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's usually used for livestock feed. So go find a livestock supply store. And if you go if you can find a feed store rather than a garden center, you can usually find it cheaper because that's where the horse people go. That's where the goat people go. That's where the cow people go. So they're going through it faster.
Look up horse feed. Horse feed.
If they're able to order in larger amounts and go through it faster, you get a better deal because they get a better deal. So I found that that's kind of important. So we have the barley. This was a 50-pound sack. Oh my gosh.
Look at you go.
All over the feet. All right. And then we're going to mix that with equal weight / volume of wood chips. This also for me is going to be a bit of an experiment because I haven't done this yet, but I've been wanting to. I am going to use part of my carbon source. So what I have in this tub here is wood chips from my house. So this is just, it's a lot of madrone, live oak. I mean, and then there's just a bunch of random other wood things in there. You can also buy wood chips. And then the other option that people have is something like this, which is pine bedding for animals. So you can also use sawdust.
Oh, yes. You can buy that by a brick, like at the feed store for like $5 or $6.
That's about what this costs. I think this huge thing. The only thing with this, it's not hardwood, so it's not ideal, but it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It can work great.
So just a thought, they also sell cedar. Wendy, go ahead and tell them about cedar.
I don't know that I would use cedar, honestly, because cedar tends to have a lot of antifungal properties.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that being said, my cedar boards, after years of, you know, adding IMO, definitely have fungus growing in and through it. You can see the mycelium running down the cedar boards. So it's not so antifungal that nothing is going to grow. Again, it probably could work, probably not ideal. I would probably use, if I was going to do cedar, I would probably definitely use some pine bedding as well, just to like supercharge it. But then you need to be aware it could get really hot really fast. So you would need to kind of pay attention to that.
Awesome.
So here's the other thing that I have. So we'll see. I have not done this. It may go terribly wrong. But this is freshly chipped cannabis stalks. And my thought process was a whole part of natural farming is using what we have around us. And I know that when you throw these stalks out in the woods, you can come back like 5 years later and they're still kind of there. And they've been inoculated with all kinds of fungus and things and they're degrading, but it seems to me like this should be a great source like a hardwood, but I don't know. We'll find out.
Well, yeah, and I recently heard of someone chipping them and then use them in the bottom of their pots for aeration, and then same thing for the same microbial content. But not to take away, so I continue.
You know, no, I love that you were talking about stocks, Wendy. Thank you, because I actually have some stocks that I've been saving, and I'm like, God, I got to do something with these. And my husband just bought a chipper, so yeah, I love that we're talking about stocks. Cool.
I usually use my stalks in the bottoms of my hule beds. Or I'll just bury them directly back into the beds. They're amazing. You'll see fungal mycelium running all along them within a very short period of time. So I have the feeling this will go well. This also has a bunch of leaf material in it, which again, I'm not entirely sure. I have the feeling I might be out here turning this pile like 12 times a day, but that's all right. So
look at that pile. I love it. This is so awesome. You're making this here. Now, you guys made this also down at the regenerative conference. What did you made a pile down there as well as it was the same, right? IMO3?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Chris did IMO3.
Yep.
And he used a bunch of my IMO2s.
And I actually showed that earlier we actually had that on the Regen conference. I showed a little bit on our video. We did a little live with you guys before you guys were making it and while you were making it. And then
that's right.
Also had the guys that put their feet in it.
Nick.
Yeah, Nick and Big Kush.
Oh my gosh, Big Sky.
Big Kush.
Big Sky Kush.
Big Sky Kush. Yes. So welcome everybody. If you're just tuning in, we've got Wendy joining in. She's teaching us how to make some IMO3 today. So welcome in chat. If you have any questions, please be sure to send them out. Wendy, I say now Chris Trump is the god of KNF, and now I say Wendy is the goddess. So Wendy is the goddess of, not that they're married or anything, don't get the wrong idea, but like, but she really knows her stuff, you guys. And it's so awesome that there's a woman representing today. So
putting in work.
Putting in the work,
right.
Exactly.
110 degrees. I'm in this beautiful shed. It's all shady.
Is it seriously 110, girlfriend?
I think that's what it's predicted to get to today, something around there.
Oh, you poor thing. Oh my.
Oh, we get used to it. As long as I don't go inside, I'm fine. The second I go inside where it's nice and cool and I try and come back out, it's like disaster.
Which is where I'm sitting right now.
All right. So we're doing, again, we want to look for approximately equal weight of wood chips and which is our carbon source, and carbohydrate, in this case, whole barley. Okay. And so I feel like, we kind of look at volume and gauge it a little bit. And I know that this is a really light material. The cannabis stalks don't have a lot of weight, but I don't want to overdo it on my carbon. So I've got about I have a 50-pound sack of grain, and I have a tote of 50 are those things? No. What size gallon is that? 30, 45? I don't know. The black and yellow totes that everybody in the cannabis industry uses. I have no idea what size they are. I've got one of those that was full of chipped cannabis stalks and leaves. And then I have a pile that is maybe about half that size of hardwood chips that came from our home here, from the homestead. So, and that's mostly, again, some madrone, some live oak, and then some other random stuff. So now that I have all of this, we're going to try and mix it. And this is going to be interesting because, again, these stalks are very they're kind of stringy, if you will.
Yeah, airy.
But airy. So I'm just going to do my best. And then I will add the liquid, which will make. And one thing that Chris Trump has taught us that I love doing is that you want to make sure that, because you never really know how much liquid you're going to use. It kind of changes with heat, and it changes with, the humidity that you have at any given time. So it's not like a really standard, like every 50-pound sack of grain takes 5 gallons of liquid. It's like sometimes it takes 2, sometimes it takes 7. You just don't really know. So if you get 2 buckets, and you want to make sure all your IMO goes into the pile. So I do about 2 gallons of liquid material solution, and I make sure all of my IMO goes into that. And then I can mix a second batch if I need more liquid that doesn't have IMO in it. It just has my other inputs. So that is your FPJ, your OHN, your Seawater, and your vinegar. All right, so this is kind of fun. And I think that I may set the shovel down. We're trying to keep the dirt out of this for the most part. And maybe getting a better chipper is a good idea too. Mine was a $75 thrift store score, yard sale score, I should say, And it does okay, but it's not great. And this is a fairly small pile, so it's not too hard to mix this by hand. It's super dusty though.
Makes it a lot less intimidating to just see it get done right in front of you, right? Like it's awesome that you're doing this.
Yeah, it's not, these are simple processes. I mean, the hard part is staying on top of it once you make it.
Disclaimer, wear a mask when you make it.
Yeah, disclaimer, masks are good. We all have those now. Thank you, COVID. The other thing I can do is actually take a pause and wet it down, which I think I'll do.
Yeah, do it.
I was gonna say, take a little pause there, Wendy. Take a break. Take a break, girlfriend. You've been starting for a while. Here. Let's talk about chat. What's going on out there in chat? How is everybody doing today? Thanks for joining us. Again, I said we are here with Wendy of Cannabis Instagram. If you haven't checked her out, please go check her out. She is making some IMO3 with us today. So welcome, everybody. How's Hetty doing today? Jesse, thank you for being here. Melman, what's up? CJ, how are you? Small tubes, dab. Woo, let's do it, shall we? Take a dab.
Woo-woo! Woo-woo! Cool. All right, so I have my bucket with 2 gallons of water in it. If you're using a 5-gallon bucket like this, so the other disclaimer I'll say is that I am a stickler when it comes to people learning these processes. With natural farming, be specific, get precise at the beginning. Because if you're not, and you have a rockin' pile, but you weren't precise, you don't really know what you did right. Yeah. So if you don't, just get really, really, really precise so that you're like, oh, that didn't work. It was too wet. That didn't work. It was too dry. Okay. I now know, well, I put in about 2 gallons. You don't want to put in about 2 gallons. You want to know I put in 2 gallons and it was too dry. So next time I want to put in 3 gallons or 2.2. So go ahead and take the time to get really detail oriented, at least while you're learning.
Just like making a cake or a bread, we know how important those ingredients are to be exactly measured out. So yes,
this is baking, not barbecuing. Literally, we are actually baking this. Yeah,
I love that.
Perfect.
Hashtag baking, not barbecuing.
Baking, not barbecuing.
Juicy.
So then I have my little cheat sheet on how to prepare IMO3. For the most part, I have it fairly well memorized at this point. But the thing I love is that I put on my cheat sheet the milliliters per gallon on the side of it. So that's the IMO3 cheat sheet. You can buy this card from naturalfarming.co. Well, sorry, Chris Trump's website, naturalfarming.co.
We'll get it up there. We'll get it in the chat. Don't worry. We'll get it in chat for him. I have one somewhere. I can't find mine.
This was his old version, and it actually doesn't have his the naturalfarming.co. There it is. Okay, but it doesn't have his logo on it. The new one does. So I wrote in a Sharpie my ratios because otherwise it's like 1 to 500. I'm like, ugh, every time I have to sit and do math. I don't want to do math. So instead I write milliliters per gallon, 7.8. So I know I've got 2 gallons. I'm going to put in 15.6 milliliters. Or basically a tablespoon.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
It makes it a lot easier. And that way it doesn't matter how much solution you're making. You just do a simple multiplication instead of divide, multiply, craziness that I'm like, no, too hard.
I'm one to get caught.
Yeah, it's really easy. I also work in milliliters because to me, the ratios are a lot easier rather than, cups are hard when you're using small amounts. Even tablespoons and teaspoons, you get 1.2 tablespoons. That's, for me, a little bit more than my brain really wants to try and figure out. But if I know it's like 16 milliliters, okay, I know a tablespoon is 15, so fill it up a little bit full, we're good.
What about all in weights, Wendy?
All in weights?
Yeah, what if you measured out in a weight scale?
Well, this wouldn't work because it's a wet volume, not a weight volume.
Love that you bring that up because I actually knew that and I forgot.
Yeah, no problem.
Like, oh yeah, duh.
Okay, so let's get into now.
All right, so that was my FPJ. So this is a nettle FPJ that I made earlier. So we've got 7.8 times 2, right? So that's 15, call it 16. Okay, and then we're doing the same with brown rice vinegar. And I did want to show you guys a couple of things because we get a lot of questions about vinegars. So
Okay.
live vinegars are best. So in the United States, a lot of times we can find apple cider vinegar. Bragg's does it with the mother. It's a great one to use. You can also get these at like restaurant stores for really cheap. It's a rice vinegar, natural rice vinegar. It's not exactly a brown rice vinegar, but it works just fine. Make sure you get it with no, a lot of times they'll season it. So don't get the seasoned one, plain old vinegar.
Unflavored.
Well, thank you for
Unflavored.
sharing that with me because I
Yes.
do. I have a hard time finding the regular vinegar. I do.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you can do white vinegar, you can use it, but the best thing you can do after you make your FPJ is you can make vinegar. So this is my nettle vinegar that came from that same nettle FPJ. And it is probably my best vinegar to date. It smells like vinegar. It has a high acidity. You get your litmus test. Ideally, you want acidity down in the 2 to 4 range. The lower, the better. I mean, to an extent. So I now use this for all of my inputs if I can keep up
I never
with it.
even
And then I have
thought
that for backup.
about nettle vinegar. That's so
Well,
cool.
you can do that.
Wow.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Wendy, but with pretty much every FPJ you do, right?
Yeah.
You can let it sit
Yes.
over. You want to quickly address that process?
Yeah, so basically after you make your FPJ, when you strain it, you can take your solids that are left over and you will mix them back in with water. And then I always use a little bit of other vinegar that has done its thing as kind of a kickoff catalyst.
Sure, yeah.
If you don't have it, use the Bragg's with the mother and it will make it, it'll get it there faster. Otherwise, you know, it can be a 6-month or longer process. But when you add a little bit to catalyze it, it seems to be about 3 months before it's down in that low acidity range.
Because I botched my first time, just because it was same thing. I didn't add anything to it, so it's taking a long time, and then I ended up forgetting about it for 2 months, and I didn't add any water, and it dried up, and that was that. But it's a learning experience.
Totally. Larger amounts are easier to deal with on the vinegars also, so make a larger FPJ and use that for your larger amount of vinegar. And then the other tip I would say is oh, I forgot. Oh, FFJs actually make a much sweeter vinegar for human consumption. I like those better. The nettle one is, I mean, it's fine, actually. It's getting better over time. So it's actually like mellowing a little bit. It was really nettly at the beginning. But don't make vinegar out of your seaweed leftovers. So
Out
if
of
you make
seaweed,
a seaweed
Seaweed's
FPJ,
back.
oh my God, it was the most
Seaweed's
disgusting
back.
thing. It was
That's
my
funny.
first vinegar ever, and I'm not entirely sure whether it was the seaweed or I have no idea, but it was really, really bad.
Pretty potent, eh?
Oh, it tasted so disgusting. I was like, no, I still have like a gallon of it from 2 years ago. So not recommended. So your vinegar also 1 to 500 ratio. So in 2 gallons, we're gonna do about 16 milliliters. That's about there. OHN, so your Oriental Herbal Nutrient. So this is my OHN from 2017. So 3-year-old OHN.
Again, if you don't mind, real quickly, what's the OHN for the plant, or where does that usually come into play?
So OHN is basically a antimicrobial, if you will. It's a immunity booster, if we were to kind of connotate it to human health. And it's actually amazing. So this is a tincture made from fermented garlic, ginger, angelica, licorice, and cinnamon. So it's very warm. My family, I'm about to start a big run of this again someday soon here. It takes 3 months to make. And it is probably one of my favorite inputs to make, even though it takes so long. But we were talking earlier before we went live about this being, for me, Korean natural farming has a lot of intentional energy. There's a very spiritual side to it. So every morning I get to get up when I'm making OHN and I get to take 15 minutes to a half an hour to open each jar and stir and, just kind of really infuse this medicine with, really good energy. And I love it. It's great.
Like touch on how far that will last as well. Like the application rates for it. Like, it's not like this is you apply 1 to 1, like.
Nope. 1 to 1,000 with OHN. So 1 gallon will make 1,000 gallons. And as it gets older, you get less. So normally with this, in 2 gallons, I would put almost 8, hi buddy, I would put almost 8 milliliters. But because this is a 3-year-old OHN, I'm gonna go down to about 6. So I'm gonna go to about 1/2 tablespoon is 7.5, 1 teaspoon is 5.
So it gets stronger as it gets older?
Yes.
It gets more potent, yes.
Okay, that's what
so
I thought.
It gets more potent, more active. And again, this is also great for human health. My mom, everybody in my family, pretty much, we take this on a daily basis. Colds and flus are really pretty much a thing of the past, which is kind of crazy to say with 2 kids. You know, we should get sick every year, and we don't since I've started doing this. So, hi guys. Yes, you're good boys. You're good boys. Go on.
That's hilarious.
Well, thank you again very much for touching
thanks,
on.
Wendy. Yeah, going over that, because a lot of people have questions on those things, and it's so cool that we have you here today to ask these questions. And I really appreciate you sharing this with us out in the heat down in Cali today. So welcome everybody. If you're just tuning in, we got Wendy with us down at Cannabis. She is making some IMO3. We got Bingo Lombardi just showing up. How are you, Bingo? And Amadeus, what's up? How are you guys? Just Puff, how you doing? Everybody in chat just showing up. We got K4 here too. Tribal, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Got any questions for Wendy? Throw them out.
See, it's getting hot. Everybody's like, time to get online and see what's up in the real real world, in the not real world, the real I don't know what that was.
In the cool world.
In the air conditioned world.
There you go.
You're in the heat, we're in the AC.
At least the basement world.
All right, so then we use seawater also. So in this tub, for you guys are just joining in, we have a ratio of 1 to 500 of FPJ, 1 to 500 of vinegar, 1 to 1,000 of OHN. I've got about 2 gallons of water. And then I'm still going to add my seawater, my humic acid, and my IMO2. So seawater, I neglectfully brought all of my seawater from last time out to the farm, so I don't have any here. But that's okay, because what I do have is sea salt. So C90 works really great if you're going to buy a product. I happen to have sea salt from, oh gosh, where is this? It's a tiny town in Mexico that my dad goes to. It's outside of Zihuatanejo.
You even know where your salt comes from?
Okay, I am a salt junkie. You guys should see, I have this like salt collection. It's amazing. I love salt. I don't actually love salt.
Oh, interesting.
I want to know more because I do love salt. So yes, tell me more. We're going to go deep.
Cool.
Well, and I want to be that guy. So why are we using seawater or sea salt?
Yeah.
Okay. So seawater is ideal, and it has all the micronutrients in it. Sea salt is basically dehydrated seawater. This is not a biological thing that we're adding to it. What we're really adding is micronutrients, and we're bringing this liquid up to the level of plant blood, if you will. So plant sap has about a 1 to 30 ratio of salt to liquid. So what we're doing is we're making this as much like plant sap, plant juice, not FPJ, but just like the liquid inside of a plant as we can. And again, so that's why you want to use sea salt, not something that's been iodized or has anything else added to it. Really a natural sea salt. Again, oops, hang on. Sorry, guys. I'm getting
no worries. And thanks again for answering.
Decline that. There we go. So this, like I said, this is this great, it's going to drive me nuts that I can't remember the name of that town, but whatever. So my dad literally brings kilos of salt back in his suitcase with him when he comes back.
I love it.
So this is pure sea salt. And in order to get to a 1 to 30 ratio, so if I had seawater, I have 2 gallons in here, I would add 250 milliliters of seawater. Since I don't have ocean water with me today, what you can do instead is you add 1 gram per liter of finished solution. So I'm not going to say like, okay, I'm adding 1 gram per liter and I have 150 milliliters. Blah, blah. No, I know that in this bucket, I have 2 gallons. So 2 gallons is approximately 8 liters. So I'm going to add approximately 8 grams of sea salt. Okay, so we're looking at the total volume in the bucket not talking about the volume of a 1:30 ratio. And that's where people kind of go wrong quite a bit.
And I really appreciate you working on a 5-gallon bucket today, because we all have 5-gallon buckets. It makes it so easy.
And then to show when you're done, like how far this is gonna go, it's gonna be quite incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to do this little bit of work. So that's 8 grams, a little bit of work to make a huge input. And this is only IMO3, right? We can take it all the way to IMO5 if we want.
Wow.
So IMO4, this pile, you know, you can see how big this pile is. IMO4, when we do that, probably in about a month or so, because you want to make your IMO3, you want to let it rest for a couple of weeks, and then you want to take it to IMO4. So we'll do that live too if you guys want, and we'll add this to and we'll add this to our native soil. And so we'll make a pile like that. And once that's done, then you literally cast it out like you would cover crop. You don't need to put a thick layer. You can, but you don't need to put a thick layer on. So we have 8 grams of sea salt. So that's, you know, small handful.
Yeah.
There we go. Small handful.
That's it.
Wow.
That's it.
Salt.
And I really like how you're illustrating.
So got a question.
Oh yeah, go for it.
What about Epsom salt?
No, Epsom salt is not sea salt at all. It's actually really not even similar at all. And if you don't believe me, go mix a little bit of salt and water and taste it, and then go mix a little Epsom salt in water and taste it. Epsom salt.
I've never done that.
It's bitter.
Oh,
it is crazy bitter. There's a liver cleanse that I've done. I'm starting it right now again. Or not a liver, well, it's a liver and gallbladder cleanse. And you have to drink Epsom salt. And it is the nastiest thing I think I have ever done.
Oh,
I mean, I was like, I would rather wrangle rattlesnakes any day than have to drink that Epsom salt.
That was so amazing to watch, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Wendy is a rattlesnake wrangler. If y'all didn't know, check her out on her Instagram. She wrangled a rattlesnake one day live.
Facebook,
or Facebooked it live. That's what it was. It's Facebook,
I was like, you all have way too much faith in me. Like, when it was done, I was like, what was I thinking? That was insane. But it was so much fun. It was a nice rattlesnake. She was totally mellow. All right, so humic acid is our next input, and we're going to add that at a 1 to 500 ratio. So again, 7.8. It's about 15 milliliters for my 2 gallons. 16 milliliters. So humic acid, this is what I use. It's expensive, but it's a really high quality humic acid. And I've been through a lot of them, and a lot of them are just, this rich, thick black color, right? It is just a gorgeous humic acid. So, and this is something it's not, I don't think it's traditionally one of the inputs, but Chris has found with his microscope that he got much better IMO piles and better activity with the humic acid. So he recommends using it, and I agree. I think it's a great input. So, okay, so now we're gonna mix all that in there, and then we're gonna add our IMO2s. So I have, I think, 4 collections here of IMO2. This is my most recent, which I'm really excited about. I think this was one of my best collections ever. And that is an IMO2 that was underneath a old ancient oak tree, a white oak that is up in the middle of this field. And it's just like one of my favorite trees out on the farm and has been for years. And I've always wanted to do a collection. And so just recently we went up there, and, you know, everybody I was with was just like, well, it's really hot and dry. Like, I think you should go down by the water. I'm like, nope, I want that tree in the middle of that field. I don't know why. And as we were talking about it, a wild swarm of bees flew overhead, zoomed around that tree for like a minute and a half, and then zipped off. I'm like, see, Mother Nature agrees. Within 3 seconds, of like looking for a spot, I found some of the most abundant mycelium I've seen in years. So
awesome. Cool.
So again, I have 5 collections of IMO. So we're just gonna take a little bit of each one of them. And you don't need a lot. In fact, you barely need any. So this is what I'm using from that collection I just showed you. Okay, so it's like a pinch. And I will use...
I would imagine that the amount you use for this varies a little bit because each collection's kind of a little bit different in its own, just with the nature of how collecting indigenous microorganisms are. But everything else is pretty well a pretty replicatable and finite thing that you want to have locked down so you can repeat your process pretty well to the nines, right? That's what it sounds like.
Yes, exactly. The IMO is the one thing we don't weigh it, we don't measure it. It's just like a little handful.
It looked like about a teaspoon to me. It looked like about a teaspoon.
Probably a half a teaspoon or a quarter of a teaspoon.
Oh, even that smaller. Okay, so I was just I was trying to give a mind because on TV or up on a screen it looks a little different for everybody. So just trying.
Yeah, I would, if I was to look at that scoop, I would say a quarter to half a teaspoon if you have multiple collections. If you have only one collection, give it a good handful. Yeah. Not huge, but like, you know, I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. A hearty handful, not too crazy.
Yeah, not too crazy, not too tiny.
Yeah, Hetty, this is an inoculant for this whole pile that she's making. It's going to be huge. Huge pile.
And then roughly, Wendy, if you have an idea, how much is this like once we finish this and you've made it into IMO5 and then start to spread, how much would this work for? So people have an idea roughly, like, is this going to be like, 10 square feet, 100 feet, way more than that? Like just so people have a perspective.
Way more than that. Way more. I think that it's, I always have to look it up because there is an exact amount and I think it's like 1,300 pounds per acre. But to me, that's always so hard because I don't weigh this. So I'm always like, I don't know what that means. Basically, what I will do is take this to IMO4. I probably won't take this to IMO5 because it's so late in the season. I tend to do that earlier. But I might, I don't know. And spread it over the whole farm. So generally a pile like this, I'm using once it gets to IMO4. So imagine twice this size. I'm using on about 10,000 square foot because I have 3 different gardens with 3 different soil types. One of them is raised beds that has a lot of potting soil that was in the top that's been tilled in. One of them is in ground that has a little potting soil and one is totally native. So I could make one with just native soil and probably use it for the whole shebang. But again, for people that are starting out and because I am kind of a purist, I like to have a different IMO4 that is exact for each area because that's going to be best for that area, right? So it's like I'm not trying to manipulate.
I like that you're bringing this up right now because I have gotten some IMO2, I think it was, from Josh from Dutch Blooms, right? Over west of me in the mountainous area where it's, forestry and everything. It's nothing like my climate here. Would I want to use his to inoculate for my own property? Like, let's, want to have that little conversation?
You can. But the truth is
it's
indigenous.
Probably not going to work, right?
Indigenous.
Yep.
Okay. So it'll work. It'll be fine.
Well,
there's nothing.
It's just like the microbes that survive over his wet climate over there are not going to survive my dry heat climate here. And that's I like that we're talking about this because even though I'd want to share my nutrients with someone clear down in California, all around the world, it might not work for their area. And that's why we need to do our own work on our own farm.
Yes.
Become a closed loop on our own farm, correct?
And this really is a process that you are supposed to do on your farm. This is not a thing where people are like, why don't you sell your IMO? I'm like, because it's my IMO. It's not your IMO. So the idea with the indigenous microorganisms is that what we're trying to do is we are trying to create we're trying to create a shelf-stable product, basically, that will, there we go, a shelf-stable product of our indigenous microorganisms, and we're trying to do this from several locations over several seasons. So when you take that and you inoculate your soil in your garden, you now do not have, like Josh's wet, moisture loving fungi. That's great when it's really wet and moist where you are, Tara, but it's not so good when it's hot and dry. So if I make collections and I say, okay, so I have an IMO that came from fir and madrone. I have the one from the oak. I have one that came from live oak and tan oak mixed deciduous forest. I have all these different collections, and I also have, well, not all of them, because when I started, I wasn't labeling the same way, but, you know, I have hot, dry, summer. I also have the date on there. This was a collection in April. This was a collection in 9, whatever 9 is, July, August.
August. So this pretty much leads right into something I was going to ask for this whole last couple of minutes here. And the same sort of thing with the input like Tara's got, would she essentially, or any of us for our own environment, want to mainly be using the ones that we cultivate that are in the specific temperature and specific environment that the plants are grown, but then also use all these additional ones to add in that diversity for when, like for Tara, that'd be a great one to add if you already had another one that was local to your environment, because then for when that other weather comes, you're going to potentially have a few of those other microbes that are stronger that would live on from Dutch blooms. You know, is that a sort of a thing? But then it wouldn't, you know, you most likely, most of them won't survive, so it wouldn't make sense to sell that, right, or anything like that. But if you trade a few through people, plus like yourself, do you use, like, say the dry farm one, you use the dry farm as like the main inoculant for it, but then do you use the other 3 in little bits as well to kind of give it a full, or do you only use the 1 for 1?
I use all of mine all the time. So the idea being that this pile is going to be kept moist. So I'm adding it when this pile starts going, it's all of those microbes will be populating around the same. You might have some that are more dominant than others. We really don't know. Another reason why I like to do these piles more than once a year. I'm a little late for my summer run, but that's all right. So in the springtime, I really want to take it to IMO5 so that I'm adding nitrogen before I'm planting things. In the fall, I also sometimes I ideally in an ideal world, I would probably want to do IMO5 because then I'm planting my cover crops, so that can help them be healthy. Yep. But generally, I don't get there. I usually get to IMO4 and then I'm kind of out of time, so that's fine. Sometimes only IMO3, that's okay too. But the whole idea is that you have sporulated fungi that are acclimated to certain conditions. When those conditions present again, those spores will come back active again. And then when those conditions that particular fungi doesn't like, when those conditions change. So this is one that prefers hot, dry weather. Well, that's awesome. When it's hot and dry, it's there. When it starts getting wet, that fungi goes back into dormancy, and your next one goes, ooh, but I like it. I like the wet. I'm coming up now. So you get these diversity, and you get something that's always going to be moving through your soil and moving through that microbiological, system, that soil food web that's going to be active in that condition. So that's why we want to use all of our IMO in our piles every time when we can. Trading IMO around is probably fine, but you have to actually consider, do you want to have your indigenous microorganisms or do you want to have somebody else's? And if you're bringing somebody else's in, are you bringing in something that might become overly dominant and actually not harm your soil biology, but harm your soil biology diversity, balance, right? So it's something to consider. Everybody kind of needs to make those decisions on their own. Personally, I know that, 500 feet above my farm, I have lots of options of places to collect. There are people who are like, I don't. I'm like, well, people in San Francisco are constantly like, I live in San Francisco, I can't do this. I'm like, absolutely, you can. Mount Tam is right across the bridge. You go, east a little bit, and you have areas out there that are elevated that people are not. There's national forests. There's always options. Sometimes you just got to get out of the I can't do this thinking box. And you got to think about like, okay, get out a map. Like I've pegged out for people. I've been like, where do you live? And they're like, oh, I live in, Chicago or something. And I'm like, okay, I don't know Chicago. I've never been there, but I'll pop a map open and I'll be like, okay, here's 5 locations that are within a short drive of your place, and then people say that like, well, I don't have a car. And I'm like, okay, you can take a bus to as far as you can get, and then you can Uber or taxi. You can talk to a friend. You gotta get
right, but it's like 80% of you or 80% of us, most likely 15 to 30 minutes, and we're somewhere where you can set a little tiny box that took $2 to make, and set it down for a couple weeks and come back. A little hike, a little adventure, right? Like
a little nature time. You go take a little nature walk. Go get out there. And even if you don't make the IMO pile, you know,
not even $2. So like this was like what's his name that gave the class
a little bamboo box, right?
Yeah, he recommended this for IMO collection. You know,
those are great. Little palm made. So
you don't even have to make it. Like it's just these are at the dollar store. You know, you can pick them up apparently.
But make it. It's more fun anyways.
But if you didn't have time, look, it's one more thing. Like someone like maybe would stop someone from doing it, right?
Totally.
One more thing.
Exactly.
Like so I don't have if you live in town, you could go to the dollar store. You could go do this. Like this is all take the bus. Like this is all things.
You can you can also go to Michael's craft stores or Beverly's or whatever craft stores around you, and they'll make those little unpainted boxes. They're little like treasure boxes that you're supposed to paint yourself, right? Get a larger size one, pound a couple holes in the bottom if you can. Well, you kind of have to, but those you'll get more than one collection out of. So there's all kinds of possibilities. So basically in this bucket, let's get back to this pile.
Yes, get back to the pile. Sorry, we got sidetracked there, didn't we?
I know. Love it though. So in this pile, we have all kinds of inputs of what I ran through already. And then I had my IMO2 collections. There it is. And good Lord. Sorry guys. I'm such a good camera person, aren't I? Where is it? There it is.
Well, it's kind of hard when you're doing it by yourself. You got it.
I'm upside down.
Yeah.
So in here, I mixed everything. And that's one thing I wanted to say. Make sure when you're doing your IMO2, you rinse your hand off in between. Don't contaminate your IMO2 collections by just going like IMO2 1, IMO2. Make sure you rinse the IMO off or else you'll bring them in together. So, everything's mixed up. There is a little bit of rice grains still in there. No big deal because those don't melt or anything. They're there for longevity. And
one more thing, just like when you're baking, right? That's what you do. You don't contaminate things. You always pour it into things to measure everything out. So yeah, just like baking. We're baking. Baking, not barbecuing.
Then we're going to make a little kind of divot in the middle of the pile.
A donut.
Again, I'll grab this and
perfect. And then just to reiterate one more time, just for everyone watching, do you want to say again what you're pouring into this pile now? That's the IMO2.
Yeah. So this is so the pile itself is grains, cannabis stalks, and hardwood chips. And then in it, we are adding all of our inputs to make our solution, which is this. So this is a 2-gallon solution. I'll probably need more liquid than this, but all my IMO is in this one. So if I need more liquid, I'll make the same solutions, but I'll leave the IMO out of it. And in the solution, there is FPJ, which is fermented plant juice at a 1 to 500 ratio. There is my nettle vinegar, also 1 to 500. There's OHN, Oriental Herbal Nutrient, which is a 1 to 1000. Only I went about 1 to 1500 or so because mine is an old OHN, so it is more potent. So I can use less of it. And then we have Seawater, which is a 1 to 30 ratio. But since I was out of Seawater, because it's all out of the farm, I went ahead and used sea salt. And that is 1 gram per liter of finished solution. So 3.87 liters per gallon. So basically I put in a little under 8 grams of sea salt in this solution. And then we have the IMO collections themselves. And what am I missing? Oh, humic acid.
You killed it.
So that's all been mixed into this 2 gallons of water.
You're like an auctioneer with it.
I know, damn, she's got that shit down, doesn't she? Look at her pour that on there. Now look at her pour that right on there, guys. So just
we're
right over
pouring it in the middle. This might be enough. I don't know. And I'm trying to go
Wendy,
slowly.
is there anything on the ground? Did you lay down anything previously on the ground before you started this? Okay.
I do this. Oh, it's running away. Too much. That's all right, though. Lost some of it. So I poured in a bit too much because this is so dry. It's really hydrophobic right now.
It's going to take a little while for it to moisten up, huh?
But if I just push this pile over, I can make a dam and catch it back up. Haha, which works great.
That's some beneficial ass runoff right there.
Yeah, totally. Some good stuff going on.
Only that
So
was
pouring it
poured
in
over the top.
slowly. I kind of had the feeling as I was doing it, I was doing a little bit of it too fast, but this is really dry. So that's all right though. Not a big deal. We will just make more. That's the great thing about this too, is that, you know, if you do this stuff where you kind of do some overkill, you know, you made it yourself. It's cheap. It's not like, oh my gosh, that was $500 a gallon and I just spilled it. Ah! You're like, oh, you know, whatever. Seawater, sea salt. What's that?
Did you pre-soak that pile with water a little bit as well, or no?
I did not. This pile has not been pre-soaked with anything. And because of this stringiness of this material, this cannabis stalks, I'm finding the shovel isn't really working extremely well for turning. Another thing I love about KNF is that it doesn't matter because this is all healthy stuff that I put in my body anyway. So I can feel really happy about just getting after it with my hands.
Yeah.
This is a fairly small pile in my opinion, so not a big deal to be able to do it by hand. Once you start getting up into the larger scale stuff and needing tractors, that's a whole different story, obviously. And the ground that we talked about, was there anything on the ground? No, this is just bare soil. You can mix it, I guess, on a tarp if you have a friend and you can like do a, you know, tarp mixy type thing to get it mixed better. But again, for me, a lot of this is not about do it faster, get it done right now. I'm like, if IMO takes me an hour and a half of being out here playing in the dirt and, you know, smelling the wonderful smell of cannabis,
hanging out with us today on a live,
and showing us all and spreading all this information and just amazing
chatting
stuff.
You know, find a way to make it fun, find a way to make it be something that you can really enjoy your time doing, where it's not like, oh, it's such a chore, I have to get this done.
You know, I really need this because this is what I do. I need to slow my life down. I find that I'm hustling through everything. I just want to hurry up and get it done. And like, you know, this is really, I really seriously need to take some lessons from you today, Wendy. I really do.
All right, Tara's going to come down to the farm.
I know, I want to.
We're just going to take our time doing this stuff.
I've been saying I want to go up and visit DK in Canada, but I'm giving up on that because they're not going to open those borders anytime soon. So I guess I'm going to Cali. I'm going to go visit Wendy.
Here, I got a question from chat for you, Wendy. It's if you are mixing all your IMO2s to make the IMO3s, won't the environmental conditions basically select whatever species you selected in those same conditions, i.e. hot, dry, wet, etc.? And then go on, sorry.
So in the pile itself, I'm assuming is what the question is referring to. And the real answer is I'm not entirely sure. But what I have found is that the pile itself does its thing no matter what. So, you know, it was it was February when we did the Regen conference. And I mean, that pile was up to 130 overnight. It got hot fast.
Cool.
It was freezing cold.
And it was cold there. It was very cold.
That's exactly what it was. Because there was a follow-up saying, like, i.e. would it be redundant to put an IMO2 you collected for the cold and wet while building it in an IMO3 pile while it's hot and dry? But you're saying it was still showing the same characteristics no matter what.
Yep. So when it's hot and dry, it goes fast. When it's cold and wet, it goes fast. Because what you're doing is it's no longer as dependent upon the weather conditions that are present. It's dependent upon the conditions in the pile. And what the pile is the pile is fungal food, moisture, and the sporulated IMO. So what is happening is inside the pile itself, it's a perfect condition for all of them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's hot out or dry out or wet out or anything else, because inside of this pile, the conditions are appropriate for all of them, for all of the fungi, right? So
amazing.
It is like baking. So what I'm trying to do is get all the grain that was spilled out. I'm trying to avoid the soil. And ideally, you want to do this on soil that's a little bit harder. I tried to scrape this as best I could to get most of the, you know, dust and stuff out, but it's not perfect, but that's okay. because I've done it a few times. And I mean, this is kind of a, you know, experimental pile using I chipped something with paint on it. There it is. I don't know what that was, but I don't want that in there. Using the cannabis stalks is something new that we haven't tried yet. So we'll see. Oops.
I love that you're experimenting. And that's another thing you do a lot on your farm. I love that when we were talking before, side-by-side experimentals, when you actually just put on straight water, you know, what a concept to do side-by-sides of bug treatments and stuff like that. That's another thing that I think is really awesome. And I'd like to mention today too, Wendy.
Oh, this is very vigorous. I just splashed myself all over. It feels great.
No.
Yummy.
Hot out here. Yeah, I'm really a huge proponent of side-by-sides. I don't think that you get a very good quality data if you don't try other things. So like the people are like, oh, you know, Dr. Zymes is amazing. I'm like, Dr. Zymes is amazing. However, often plain water does as good of a job. It depends on your pest. It depends on what's going on. So, you know, if you're not doing a side-by-side, you can't really say for sure whether or not something worked. That being said, if I had enough grain, I would do a side-by-side with this without the cannabis stalks, but since I don't, we're just gonna have fun with it. So I've got another 2 gallons of water, and I'm gonna add my inputs again, because that is not enough
you're
moisture.
wanting to also find that the cannabis stalks break down, and like you see, you already know kind of what you're looking for in this experimental pile. It's not that you're taking this experimental pile and trying to do a side-by-side or a test study on it. You're just doing the test study of what it's going to react to right now, because you already know what it would look like if it was something else, correct? Maybe?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. And I'll look at it under my microscope and I will see.
Okay.
You know, for me, it's really, the question for me is going to be, is this going to get too hot too fast?
And I love
That's
that you
really
bring up
kind of-
microscope. You
Yes.
look under a microscope. Yes, I
do.
don't have one of those.
They're really, really good to have. You get so much more information. Things look good and you're like, this looks amazing. I did such a good job. All right, I got it. You know, and then you look under the microscope and you're like, oh, it's all actinobacteria. Shoot. I thought that was mycelium, but it's not, because that looks similar.
Is there an entry-level microscope that you would recommend for people?
Entry level. Well,
at whatever cost that could.
Right, like my version of entry level stuff, I realize, is a little bit skewed for the science world.
That's
so
okay.
It's about a $300 scope. Don't get the do not get the camera that comes with it, because the camera that comes with it kind of sucks. But it's an Omax, OMAX, okay, Omax, and you want to get the 40 to 2500x compound lab microscope. If you go onto Elaine Ingham's site, it's the one she recommends. I believe it is also the one that Chris Trump has on naturalfarming.co. He's got a supplies list down at the bottom.
Awesome.
And
I love that you mentioned that. Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah. And again, don't get the camera's not so bad, but the software that it comes with is total junk. So Celestron makes a really good camera if you want to connect it to the computer to take pictures, which you don't have to.
But it's so nice to be able to take a picture of something and freeze it and blow it up and look at it, and like being able to really identify some things. I know that there's so many things that look like one another, and it's so important.
Another tip for your microscope, if you have a microscope, go to Tim Wilson's website, organicmicrobes.com, and at the bottom of the home page, the top page there, he has a couple, I think it's labeled stuff I sell or something, and he has 2 digital downloads now. They used to be DVDs. I think that now they're digital downloads of one is what your microbes look like. So it's like, here's a ciliate. You're like, oh, it moves so fast. Okay, I get it. And then the other one is a how to use your microscope, how to set it up, tips and tricks on that. So it's a great resource if you have a microscope, but you're having trouble using it. You could also take, Elaine Ingham has an online course, I believe now, on microscopes. And she's who I learned from. She's amazing. There's setting up your microscope is a little more difficult than take it out of the box and turn it on. So there was tips that she gave us where I was like, oh, I had no idea. So she's a great one to check out also.
Thank you very much. Just,
Yeah.
I'm just looking up trying to find some of this information to share in chat, but no luck.
Hetty says Tim Wilson's site is Microbe Organics.
Oh, I was wrong. I said organic microbes. Microbe Organics. My bad. Thank you.
Thank you, Hetty. Thank you for that. Here,
we appreciate
Hetty,
that.
Let me
keep me in check.
Hetty, I'll even moderate you up if you want to post that for me. You can go ahead and post stuff if you guys. Just let me know, you guys, if you want to post links or you need to post something that's informational that we need to put out there. Please just let me know. I'm not going to be stingy on
anyone's information. We appreciate it so much.
All right, so now I'm doing something else that is not prescribed. So don't do this at home, people. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm having a hard time saturating these cannabis sticks. They're staying very, very dry. And it's kind of, I feel like it's going to throw my pile off.
So a thought would be, what if like kept it in that tub that you had it in and pre-moistened them with
and
that?
I've done that before too.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I've done that before, but it kind of gets difficult because you get dry spots and wet spots, and you want it to be mixed in with all of this stuff too.
Got it.
People can do it. It does work. There's nothing wrong with that. I kind of like being on the ground. There's just something about it for me that I don't like the black totes. I see them enough in my life. I don't want to include them in part of this. So it's just a personal bias. It has nothing to do with,
we live in those black totes, do we not? Gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
We all want to have stock.
I don't really want to deal with the black totes as much as I have to deal with them enough. So yeah. But again, that's just a personal issue. You can totally mix in a wheelbarrow. You can mix in the black totes. You can, whatever kind of floats your boat. If you are in a wheelchair or something, or you are physically disabled, because this is hard work. This hurts the back. Even with a shovel, you're bent over, right? You can get and again, this is not really ideal, but it works and you can do it. You can get a cheap little cement mixer. You can rent them. You can buy them from like Harbor Freight has cheap cement mixers.
Home Depot,
you can get ones that are hand cranked.
Yeah.
You can get
and you can even find them a lot of times on Craigslist these days.
Yeah. So you can get one of those and put all your inputs in that and just, turn it that way. You may have to do a little turning when you dump it out. But again, if you're physically disabled and you really want to get into this, you can totally do it.
Thank you so much for addressing that. That's awesome.
Or putting it in a barrel and getting somebody to roll it around.
Yeah, that too. You could get your children and you could
play a game.
Okay,
roll the barrel.
My brain went to like rodeos, right?
I know. There you go. Ride the barrel.
Bring it to the rodeo. And
I'm a country girl too. It's okay, Wendy. We're all good.
All right. So I think I'm pretty happy with the moisture level. The cannabis stalks are officially a pain and it took us to deal with.
Okay.
Well, what do you think if you ground them up?
Yeah, I was gonna say the other thing is my chipper again was a super cheap chipper, so it's not it doesn't do a very good job chipping. So I think a better chipper would probably do better. I also think that my full-term plants will chip a lot better. This was light depth, so I don't have big stalks. They're fairly small. So I think that come this fall, when we harvest, I'll be able to pull my big stalks and do a much better job of getting them chipped because they're thicker, so they'll go through the chipper better.
That makes sense.
But let's see. And then we want to make sure that you get the center of the pile. So if you don't get the middles and the bottoms, you'll have hot spots, wet spots, dry spots. It won't be even moisture, and your pile will run away with you really quickly. So
Weed says, we got Weed in chat that says, hire a couple of beavers.
Hire a couple beavers. That's what I need.
I had to throw that one out there. That was pretty funny.
We have beavers around here. Got otters. they wouldn't be any help.
No,
I've got children. They're not any help. They're inside watching TV. They're supposed to be cleaning their room, but I suspect they've snuck down since I haven't been in there.
I know. You know, when mom's away, those kids will play, won't they?
Yep. They know.
Which is so awesome, by the way. You know, Wendy's doing this gardening on her own as a mom of two, right? Two daughters.
Yeah.
What are their ages?
I have a 6 and a 10.
Wow, you got your hands full, girl.
Yeah. I also have a mom. My mom taught me how to garden and how to farm. So I'm second generation legacy cannabis, Southern Humboldt. And she's still with our team. So she helps me a lot.
Yeah.
She's always really interested in all this stuff. She texted me this morning and said, I have a jar of old wilted, like, you know, not crispy 6-week dills. Can you use that for KNF?
That's funny.
I
was
love
like,
it.
yay, no.
Mom's
So
thinking,
she's
thinking about it.
yeah. So she's thinking about it, which is awesome.
Well, that's
Okay.
awesome.
I think that I might be there.
So I'm thinking it's dab 30 for all the moms out there doing all this hard work and walking the walk
seriously.
and talking the talk. I'll take a dab for you, Wendy, while you're working.
Yeah, get it.
Cheers,
I'll-
everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic, happy, high day out there.
Virtually dab you with Tara.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Right. Woo. That's
So
what gets you
maybe
sweating.
after seeing what, this is the third IMO3 pile now being made, maybe I'll actually make one.
Hey, come down to my farm. You'll definitely make one.
Hey, there you go.
Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this. Actually, this is pretty cool. We'll see. I've got it about 6 inches high, and so the moisture level, to show you guys, is that. So it's not really, you know, it's not super wet. It might be a little dry, but I think that those cannabis stalks kind of held a lot of liquid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give them like 2 hours and they're going to be puffed.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
feel like I'm pretty happy with where this is at. In total, it looks like I've used about 3 gallons. So I've got about a gallon left in this 5-gallon bucket. And I don't want to add it because I don't think it needs it. When I stick my hand into the middle of this pile, so as I'm digging in there, it's, no, I might lie. I might need a little bit more.
See, so if you continue to be on the fence and say you don't add any right now, do you have a grace period where you can add it in, or is it kind of like now or never?
It's now or never.
Okay.
You
Beautiful.
do not add it in later. Once it is done, it is done. Once you have covered it and let it sit, that's it. There's no coming back. You don't get to add more later. You don't get to decide it was too dry and, you know, it's not going fast enough, whatever the case may be. And it's not that you can't do it, because you can. People do things all the time, right? But almost always what happens is people do that, and then their pile gets too hot too fast, and it goes ammonia, goes anaerobic, doesn't work, and then they lost their whole pile. So if you want to mess with things and try it, you can, but it's not been recommended.
No, it's kind of nice.
And like I said,
the process.
yeah, everyone I've seen that has done it has been like, man, dang it.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so again, I'm getting into the center here and just really turning where I added that liquid. You really don't want to have that be a big wet spot. No
But
wet
yes,
spots, no dry
Susie,
spots.
Susie, Wendy is in the Humboldt area, by the way. Yes, she is. She is in that's actually where we met, down at the Regenerative Conference down there in the Humboldt area.
Yep, I live in Bryceland and my farm is in Benbow Valley. So I someday hope to build a little tiny house out there, but I think this year we'll be looking for a camper trailer type of situation for next year, because the commute is not so fun. And we had problems with the state making us label things a certain way. And so they had us label our entire farm, the whole 160 acres, as a premises instead of property. And what that meant was that my children are not allowed anywhere on that 160 acres.
Oh.
So I've been dealing with the state amending my map, and they don't like it. They want me to say the whole thing is the premises, and because there's no house out there. I'm like, yeah, but I still need to have my kids out there while I'm working.
Wendy, I'm so sorry to hear about that. That's awful. Yeah, to take your kids away from you while you're trying to farm and do this on your own. Oh,
this is super dangerous for children to be around.
Watch out, it's
growing.
A stick.
Yeah, it's a stick. Oh my gosh, and growing plants. Growing plants are like, you get high off those all the time.
Stick's gonna get ya.
All right. I'm pretty happy with that there.
Awesome.
Woo. So, let's see. Yeah, so see my hands. Oops, man, stop calling me people. All right, so my hands are kind of, they're not wet, but they're not dry. There's a moisture type situation going on. So, switch. There we go. All right. So you can see this is like, moist-ish, but also because these grains are large and the chips are large, with IMO3, you don't really get this whole like squeezing moisture. It's more of a feel. Okay. So there's a nuance of feeling it. It doesn't feel wet. It doesn't feel dry. It feels moist. And
so kind of really like if you had the perfectly stirred Caesar salad.
Yeah. Not too much dressing, not too little. There's no like dressing pooling underneath it or anything like that.
So you can still taste the lettuce.
Exactly. Again, well, that's not baking.
Well, that's not baking though, huh?
But that's the pile. No,
I'm a foodie. Really. What can you say?
So that's my pile. It's about 6 to 8 inches tall, maybe, give or take.
Okay.
And I'm kind of liking the way that looks. So that's where that will be for probably a couple weeks, maybe longer. And I will go get my thing. I will go get my tech hack that I'm going to use on this, and we will see. We'll kind of tap in. I'll be definitely talking about it over Instagram. So I'll go run and grab that.
Oh, we might have lost her for a second there, Wendy.
I think we lost her for a second. That's okay. She might be getting another call. Close. There she is. She's back.
Okay,
she's
sorry
back.
about that.
That's okay.
My phone is
trying to blow up.
Right,
you're probably trying to run a business here, and you're hanging out here on with us today. Nice. How's everybody doing today? Hope you're having a great day. What's up, Iron Bridge? Nice to see you in chat today. Nice. Raptor, how are you? I think I want another dab. Wendy's off, taking a break there. DK, what are you dabbing on today? You went out this morning and you went out on the garden to do some JMS or no FPJs, right? You went and
Yeah, you inspired me, so I got my ass up at like 5 this morning and
good for you.
Flower FPJ. I did mainly just the new coming up heads, and then I did like 1 or 2 where it was already just starting to show some flowers, so I can get a little bit of like plant diversity, if I should say.
So you did FPF. What does it stand for? Tell everybody in chat.
Plant juice, and then with that one, you take whichever plant you're using. So for me, the sunflower heads, chopped them up into smaller pieces, added them 1-to-1 with sugar in an open mouth container, capped it with sugar, organic raw brown sugar ideally, but most sugars work. Same kind of thing. Whatever environment you're in, you have to use what you have to use. And then you put a elastic band with a paper towel or something along those lines over top so it can breathe, but you don't let any insects in. And then roughly a couple weeks to a little bit longer. I'm sure you can leave it for a pretty good amount of time, but I'd love to see what Wendy has to say about that. But a couple weeks nonetheless. And then you strain out what's with the liquid at the bottom. The osmotic pressure from the sugar with how it reacts with the plants sucks out all of its, I think, minerals and nutrients and all the little goodies. So then you can strain that out, and that liquid you usually add 1 to 500 for most applications, be it a spray if you do that or a soil drench.
Isn't that crazy how you use all these things? They're so concentrated and so little goes so long.
It sure does. And it's so fun to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not up very often like that. So like to kind of be out with all the birds waking up and the sun starting to crest and like, you know, it's a good experience. It makes you want to do it more and more and more. And you're so like, you know, you have that time with nature, right? So it's like just like,
okay, fine, y'all. Tomorrow morning I'm getting up. We're gonna do this.
hey, I'll find something else. I've got another plant that I'll have to talk about after the live, and I'll make another one with you.
Okay, let's do it. Wendy's back. Go ahead, Wendy.
So fun. I love making FPJ. Okay, so this is something I got because one of the problems with IMO piles is that they get too hot and you don't know. So you come out and you're like, oh, great, it's at 140 degrees. It smells like ammonia. It's great for your compost and your worm bin, but you killed all your fungal hyphae off. So we don't want to do that. So I had a little tiny bonus, and I bought a barbecue thermometer that has an alert on Wi-Fi that will make your phone beep when it gets too hot.
Oh, sister,
I'm
I
like,
love that.
Nice.
Crazy excited about this thing.
Okay, now we're barbecuing though now.
Yep, now we're barbecuing. We're back to barbecuing. We're done baking, we're barbecuing. Now, you guys get off. Go on. Out, 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 out. Go on. I love you, boys. Go on. Go on, go on, go on, go on, go on. Good boy. So this is a Inkbird Smart Home, Smart Life barbecue thermometer. And it comes with this little set of 4 probes. And I've never used it before, so I'm super excited about this. So we've got these 4 little probes that we're going to put in different spots in the pile. And then I'll be able to set an alert on my phone. So there's an app that comes with this thing. And you set a high or low temp alert. So I can set this to alert me anytime it hits like 120 degrees. And then I know that I need to come and turn my pile. So really, you can go.
That's gonna have to go on my Amazon list, you know, if I try and do one of these piles, because I'm gonna need a reminder like that. That's so cool, Wendy. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if it works, right? So this is a test. I don't know if it'll work or not. I don't see why it wouldn't, as long as I'm home and my phone is within the same Wi-Fi signal. I mean, I wonder if it works when you're not at home. No, it's got a range that I don't know. Okay, well.
If it's Wi-Fi, it should potentially work anytime you have Wi-Fi, but I'm not positive. Right. I'm not positive on that. It could just be from distance from your house. But either or, it's really cool. And if it does work, then that's going to be fantastic. Perfect application.
Yeah, I'll see next time I go to town and see if I can still log on to the app and see if it connects or not. So this is really exciting. I've been wanting to do this for so long, like a year. I think I've been talking about, like, at first it was like, there's got to be some product that exists out there that like alerts you when things get too hot. And I found some cheap ones. And then finally, you know, I did some research. I think this cost about $100, which I was like, wow, people spend that much money on barbecue thermometers. But for an IMO pile, I was like, this could, you know, if it saves a pile, that's, you know, $20 worth of grain and time and energy. So.
And I would imagine you only, if you had to, and you only had one probe or access to something along those lines, like say just a probe to stick into a pile, you really just need it in the deepest, most center part of that pile, so you can kind of maintain that. And as long as that doesn't get too hot.
Yeah. But I've seen where they use the big long meat thermometers and stuff like that. Right? Yeah, different. There are different stuff like that. But I do like the reminder thing because I'm in a really hot environment, and I know that I'm gonna cook the crap out of whatever I'm probably doing. In fact, I've got to go check what did I make?
I was gonna say, you mean we're gonna get distracted and be doing a whole bunch of other things? And
yeah, well, I made this. What did I make? DK
JMS, I think.
No, KMS. No.
JMS.
JMS. Got all these freaking acronyms right now.
Microbial solution is what you're doing.
So I made my first JMS the other day. and it's out. I think it should be ready any day, like any probably tonight. We have to put that on solution tonight. And then DK told me how much I actually made for the amount that I need. Yeah, I made way too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made five 5-gallon bucketfuls.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
He's like, I think it's good for 150 gallons. And I was like, I think it's good for like 1,500 gallons.
Yeah, but you know, math, it's close, whatever.
Yeah,
You could use
roughly.
more.
It's
be
going
stronger.
on my lawn. It's going on our lawn because I do not have that big of a farm. I just have my little small plants, you know. So like
And just to touch on that specific thing for anyone else listening or whatnot with the JMS, it's recommended only go about 30 to 1 hottest and then up to 300 to 1 minimal. So I think at 30 to 1, Tara was weighing out at 1,500. I'm not sure.
I get all those.
Regardless.
I get all those
Yeah.
you know, 30 to 1, 10 to 1, 1 to 1,000s. You know, they're all so many. And like, I've got those numbers get so confusing. And I'm glad Wendy went over this today on my channel. So I'm going to go back and take a little bit more notes. I have a few notes I've taken, but.
And I really.
Yes.
So thank you.
Real quick on that, because people have a really hard time with ratios.
Yes.
The easiest way to do it is take the 1 to 500. Take 1, divide it by 500, you get a number. It's 0.02, if I recall correctly. I think. Something like that. And then you know that you need 0.02 gallons per gallon, or 0.02 milliliters per milliliter, or 0.02 liters per liter, whatever it might be. Okay. And then you can figure out, if I like to work in milliliters, I know that, you know, I'm not going to deal with the 0.02 liters per liter. And I also do my water in gallons because that's easiest, but then I do my solutions in milliliters. So I can like I said, on my cheat sheet, I can write down my little thing where I know per gallon, it's 7.8 milliliters is a 1 to 500 ratio. So for every gallon of water, I add 7.8 milliliters of whatever that solution is. Chris likes to work in ounces. So he figures out, you know, his ratios in half an ounce or whatever it might be. Again, for me, I like precision. So I like the pinpoint precision milliliters gives me. But as you scale up to very large amounts, so if I'm making a, you know, 150 gallon or a 500 gallon liquid IMO, I'm probably not going to figure out milliliters. I'm probably just going to go ahead and, you know, use my gallons. Right.
Exactly.
So.
Well, that's awesome. That's a great tip. And yeah, for anyone that is just tuning in now, go back and check out that little cheat sheet. It's fantastic. And then I believe she mentioned where you can actually purchase one for yourself, because I'm going to be doing that after this, because there's so much they're saying, so many abbreviations and ratios and stuff. So just to get something in my hands that I can post up and then additionally add on to, like you just showed us there, it's perfect.
Makes it super easy.
Exactly.
Cool. So this now is my pile with my probes. So I've got the 4 probes in there. They connect to this little box, which I'm going to mount up here on the wall. And I realized that I didn't charge the battery. But the cool thing about this is you can leave this in and charge it while it's still taking temperatures.
Oh, nice. There you go. Perfect.
One of the reasons why I bought the more expensive one. So it's just got the little, you know, charger cord. I'll drag my extension cable over here because, again, this is meant for barbecuing, which is like an hour to 3 hours type of thing. I mean, maybe if you're smoking something, you've got a 6-hour smoke going. But in general, this isn't really meant to be on for like 2 weeks constantly. So if the battery dies and I don't know it, it's not doing its job. So I'm going to have this permanently plugged in. I am going to come and put a little thing on the wall so I can have this up a little bit higher so it gets a little better Wi-Fi signal. And when we turn it on, though, it's going to turn off because it's going to say it doesn't like the battery. But, you know, it's already reading temperatures. I think that's Celsius. It is Celsius. Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Normally, if this was outside in the sun, it would be covered with about 70% shade. I will probably go and cut down some of my kiwi there. My kiwi vine needs to be trimmed. So I'll probably take a few of those off and kind of give this a little bit of a, you know, random covering. The one thing I found in class when I was there when I took this class from
Wendy,
Chris
you're
years
getting
ago.
you're getting a
Yep.
little robotic. Just to let it catch up with you a minute.
Wah, wah,
There
wah.
you go. Go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that we discovered with Chris in the class that I took whenever that was years ago was that the burlap piles all got way too hot, way too fast. So I would not recommend covering your pile with burlap. I think that there was a moisture issue where the burlap was actually getting kind of moist and trapping heat and wasn't able to breathe very well. So stick with natural materials if you're going to cover it. Again, you should cover your piles 70% covered. So you don't want to cover it entirely. And dried leaves or branches, whatever you've got around you.
Branches and leaves around.
Yeah.
I remember doing that with you guys, and that's right. Yep. Awesome.
Well, I've actually got branches over there, but no leaves on those. So, yeah.
So that's so cool. Thank you for going all over this today. Yeah. And did you want to talk about your fish thingy?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
The fish
and
thingy.
you mentioned
ingenuity here.
We also mentioned
DIY.
A class with Chris, and isn't there going to be?
Oh yeah, that class is coming up.
Sometime.
Yeah.
Circle in a little bit here. You want to talk about that?
We do.
Yeah.
We have class coming up in Boise. That is starting on September. It's right at the beginning of September. Might be like August 30th or something. It's a 5-day intensive. If you go to naturalfarming.co, it'll lead you to the Eventbrite page. I believe there is still room, but I'm not positive. And you could take a 5-day intensive with Chris Trump, and a bunch of us that are returning students will be there to help answer questions and things as well. And it's kind of my yearly retreat is I get to go up there and hang out with my tribe and
I was
talk about
seriously
ferments.
thinking about going, but my husband just informed me that he's going to be camping that weekend with, I think, his daughter. So I won't be making it. That's a bummer.
Wah.
But hey, maybe
I was going to say.
Yeah. I know.
There's always next year, and then I'm like, but you never know. That's the crazy thing. There's not necessarily always next year. There might be next year.
That's exactly right.
All right. But anyway, so this is FAA, fish amino acid. So what this is I built this because I wanted to do a large run of FAA, and I had 3 5-gallon buckets full of fish and sugar in my bathroom. And people were like, this is kind of gross. I'm like, hang on, give me a minute, I'm getting there. So I knew I had a pickle barrel, but I also knew that in order to get the fish amino acid out of that, I would have to climb into it, basically. Like, there was no good way to straighten it. I was like, ew, gross, I'm not doing that. So what I did was I created this little station, and I drilled a hole in the bottom of it with 1 3/8 drill bit. Oh, 3/8, 1 3/8. Yeah, little over 1 1/4 inches. And then I took a Terra, what is it called?
Bulkhead fitting.
Thank you. Bulkhead fitting. I was like, shoot, I forgot what it's called again. Bulkhead fitting, which is this. So this has a rubber gasket on the inside and another screw type thing. See, I'm also not a plumber. But this is a bulkhead fitting. You can go and buy one. They're made for water tanks. And this has another washer right here so that it's sealed. It goes to a male-to-male adapter, and then that goes to this gate valve, which is obviously in the off position right now. I did use plumber tape on it, so I did that right. Has not leaked at all. There's no leaking, there's no dripping, and that is full of 15 gallons worth of fish and brown sugar, a dash of IMO, a little splash of FPJ, and IMO3, IMO3, FPJ, and a little bit of OHN. And that will sit for 6 months to a year. And I'm going to continue to fill it because it's not full right now. It's only up to about here-ish. So it needs to get up to the 2/3. So we're going to fill it all the way up to that. And weight-wise, currently I used 100 pounds of sugar and 100 pounds of fish. So that's holding about 200 pounds. And then I also knew that, you know, in order to get that open, I had to be lifted up, obviously, right? So I figured out when this thing is full, it could easily weigh 500 pounds. So it's got to be on something that can hold that, manage that type of weight. I also didn't want to have to go out and buy 4x4s or pressure treated wood, or I just wanted to do something with what I had. So I had started a pallet fence over there, right over there. So I'm building this fence out of pallets. So I have a whole stack of pallets back there. And I went, oh, what if I just take a pallet and I just rip it apart? Because pallets are super strong. They're meant to hold a lot of weight. So I took this pallet and I ripped it into quarters, basically. And so I have 1/4 of it here. So I cut it across the top, cut it in half long ways. And then the other side over there. And then I just used the extra pallet pieces to reinforce the sides, the bottom, the top, and the barrel fits on it perfectly. So it's supported by the back panel that goes that way and the 2 sides as well. And then I have this wonderful little bench top that I can set things on. So it was super easy. Well, okay, I don't know, super easy. It was fairly easy. It took me a little bit of finagling to get it to be the right size, but now that I've done it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is cake. And then because of the fittings down here, this actually has, it's not a PVC piece, it actually has threading on it. So I can put another piece in there and attach it to a hose if I wanted to. But I have these skinny 2.5 gallon jugs that fit under there perfectly. So I can push my 2.5 gallon jug in, I can turn it open, I can drain until it's full, I can turn it off, take it out, put the next one in. I will put a filter on that so I don't get any of the junk into the bucket. And I think it's going to be really easy.
No, it's fantastic.
We'll see in about 6 months.
It looks great. It's you can definitely say it's super affordable, the system you've done. Like there's just, you know, so much little ingenuity in there, and it's just, yeah, it's great to see.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
Wendy.
the pallet was free. I got about 5 cents worth of screws in there. The pickle barrel, the place we found down in Windsor, California, sells them for $16, which is really cheap. Normally up here, they're about $30. So, you know, $16 to $30 for your barrel. I think the fittings below are about $3.50. And so, you know, for under $40, you have this system set up and built, and you can do a larger scale FAA run.
Yeah,
and, yeah,
good size.
great.
Okay, did you say how long it takes for FAA?
6 months minimum. Leave it for a year if you can.
Poor Stoney says he just did his first one and he did it 3 months ago. He's like, how long's this gotta go?
You can start using it. Yeah, you can start using it at 3 months, but it's really not finished yet. So you really 6 months at least. You know, and again, a year if you can.
So
if you're using other animal other than fish, you definitely want to let it go for at least a year.
okay, so you can use other animals. I was just going to ask you, so what about like, okay, so maybe I have a freezer full of stuff that like maybe I, you know, should have like, you know, did something with, like, you know, maybe like there's some shrimp in there and maybe there's like some seafood, like maybe some fish that I forgot to maybe gut and I threw it in there because I was going to throw it in my garden, right? Different stuff like that. Could I take all of that and use that? Could you use red meat? Could you use white meat? You know, tell me about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can. You can use, so in general, you know, I don't know for certain about mixing meats. So I don't know positively if you would want to mix a red meat and a fish, for example, or a chicken and a red meat. My gut instinct says no, but I could totally be wrong on that because it's a very different process than FPJ or anything. So I absolutely don't know for certain whether you can mix.
For me, as far as mixing, then seafoods, you could mix seafood. Then
I believe so.
Okay.
Like shrimp and lobster, I mean, I'm sure are fine. Again, fish and shrimp, I don't know. That's a Chris question. I don't have the answer on that one.
Okay.
I try to keep things separate as much as I can, just because for some reason, you know, I mean, most of it we keep separate. So I just kind of, if I have that in my head, like just do things separately, I don't screw up and add things together that I wasn't supposed to.
You don't ruin it all. You'd rather just ruin one little piece than a whole bunch.
And you don't ruin it all. So if the shrimp does really well, but the lobster had something weird in it, and the fish was frozen whole, but it had actually gone funky before you froze it, and now it has some parasites, and then, oh, now you lost a 50-gallon barrel instead of just a 5-gallon batch. So, again, especially for people that are just getting into this and just starting to try it out, I mean, I really not one to talk because I usually go big right away. I'm like, why should I make 1 gallon of OHN when I can make 6? But OHN is also different. FPJs, I think I started with some large batches, but I did them wrong. So like my first one was, I think, 15 gallons worth of thistle FPJ. And the book that I was using that was like, here's how you do this, said to pull up the whole thing and use the roots and everything and don't rinse it off and go ahead and put the dirt in there. And I was like, this seems really weird, but okay. And it did not work. It was whatever. It was great compost. I put it in the compost pile. It was a lot of time wasted. It was, I think a 70 pounds of brown sugar that ended up in the compost.
Okay, so yeah, bring back what you're talking about there, like the specifics, so just the facts of not dirt in your mix, right? You should kind of break off the dirt. You should really rinse off the dirt. Like those are little things that are little tricks of the trade, right?
Well, yes. So yes and no. So don't rinse your plants. But the thing with FPJ is that you really want to use just the growing tips. So we're talking about no more than 6 inches per plant. And in general, it's less. There are some plants that grow so prolifically that you can get 6 inches down. Blackberry is one of them. So when the
only want the first
turning hard,
6 inches of the plant
or less.
Really?
What about the blackberries?
So, right. So people love using blackberries because it's such a prolific weed, right? So with blackberries, you can generally take you can take at least 6 inches, sometimes more. And actually, I'll go rip a blackberry up right now.
Look at her.
Look at her
go. Hey, Raptor, welcome coming in. I just sent Raptor a link out. Thank you, Raptor, for joining us today. How are you? You've been in chat. What's going on?
Doing good. Hope everyone's doing good too. Just trying to stay out of the heat.
Are you enjoying the show? Are you understanding everything okay? Any questions for Wendy going over today? She's grabbing some raspberries.
No, I actually missed the first 40 minutes, 30 minutes.
Okay,
I was making some lunch.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, but I'd love to hear her experiment with the shrimp more and the lobster. Like she was I missed the beginning because I was trying to sign in and I was having some issues with my email, but I was rushing it and I was like, oh, I locked myself out, but I fixed everything.
That's all good.
But yeah,
I
would love to hear more about it because I've been getting into like fish ferment. I haven't done any yet, but I've been looking into fish fermentation for a year or so. And I wish I would have just a year ago just done it because it would have been done by now, first off. But also in terms of food, I've also been looking into like fish fermentation and stuff, and I've just realized how much it really gets into it. So I wonder if she's gonna like get like a soy sauce bottle, a little Kikkoman bottle, and just like dip it in there for herself later.
Oh, and there was a question in chat, Wendy. Someone said, wasn't it you that made rat FFA?
Mouse amino acid is currently brewing.
Mouse. Okay. Well, okay. It was a thing. There we go. Go ahead, Wendy.
Yeah.
Take it away.
My house mouse, FAA, my house HMAA, house mouse amino acid. I have 2 little quart jars that are 2/3 full of dead mouse and brown sugar and a lot of IMO3 because I was like, I'm not messing around with this. This is like kind of gross. And it's amazing. There's no maggots in it. There's no weird stuff going on. It's just slowly like dissolving. It's it's pretty cool. It's totally disgusting. I will not taste it. I will not be tasting that one. I'll bring it to Chris. If he tastes it, I'll taste it, but that's the only way that's happening.
Oh my God. That could almost be a fundraiser, to taste.
Auctioning off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that's not a bad idea. If I drink it, everybody's got it. If we get up to $10,000 in donations for me to buy compost tea brewer system and new watering system, I will taste the mouse amino acid.
That might be a start, Wendy. Don't tempt me, honey. Don't tempt me.
Oh God. I would do it for that too. I trust my system that much, you guys. I would drink liquefied mouse.
Unalive.
Unalive.
Oh,
me and my rattlesnake buddy. We'll take down that mice, no problem.
I'm having anxiety for you. Oh God.
No matter what, it's kind of like goes down in the books as something amazing, right? Like if I died from it, it would be like, oh, this is a cautionary tale, and if I don't, then how amazing is that, right? All right, so back to the blackberry.
Okay.
So blackberry shoots are great because you can make FPJ from them almost any time of year because they're kind of always growing everywhere, right? So with this one right here, these are hard. They're not, they're breaking off the stick. They're really pokey. They're nasty. They're hard. However, when we go down this way, I wish it would focus on that, but oh well. Focus.
What? Hold your hand behind it. Right. Hold your hand right behind it.
Oh, right. Somebody else showed me that. That's right.
There. Go up a little bit more. Go up higher.
We get the picture anyways.
Camera.
Okay, go closer.
Well, you get...
Because they look a lot softer and spongier.
Yeah.
Right?
Anyway, we can see it. We can see it. You're good.
So right here, the thorns are soft. So I can put my hand on this and, they're not poking me. They're not breaking. They're actually just kind of mushing and popping back up. So there's also a color change. I don't know if you can see it, but right about here, it goes from bright green and then it starts going red. And this is where it starts getting hard and brittle, ouch, and pokey. So you don't want to take the pokey hard part. This is old growth. This is fresh new growth. Soft. This is where all the growing hormones are, okay? So all the hormones for plant growth are right here in these tips, and this is about right there. So this is an inch to two, this is about 2 inches is all.
I'm glad you're telling me all this right now because I'm getting ready to go out tomorrow morning and I was going to go take some reeds and I was going to take some stinging nettle maybe, and I was going to take some thistles. So like stinging nettle, it's got, I've got a lot right now that is in several stages. Most of it's all really flowered out and has the really nice big buds on it already, if you will, the seeds. So that's probably too late, or is that too late? Where are we sitting at with that?
That's probably too late. There's a lot of chatter going on lately that I can't really talk to because I don't have an answer about, different growth cycles of plants for the growth. Because this is, most of us grow cannabis. Like really, cannabis is pushing natural farming to a whole new visibility. And it's amazing and wonderful. And I love it. And I'm super stoked for it. But the thing I know about cannabis is that most cannabis growers have had some experience in the forums and in chatting. And there's a lot of over engineering that happens with weed. And so, you start getting into like VPD and EC and pH and, your lumens and your wattage and your red light, blue light, green light. There's no green light, red light, blue light, white light, whatever it is with LEDs, right? Obviously I don't grow indoor anymore. So people are like, oh my God, what's wrong with this plant? And you see all these people chiming in and this plant is outside. And I just experienced this. This guy's like, dude, what's up? And people are like, what's your pH? What's this? What's that? And I'm like, I know it makes a difference inside. I get it. I've been there. I used to grow inside all the time. We had big grows indoors. And, I don't know, we didn't really pay attention to pH that much. We did have problems that were caused by nutrient lockouts and whatnot because we were in 3-gallon pots. Now, the second I ditched the 3-gallon pots and we moved into beds inside, I quit pHing my water. I paid no attention to EC. I didn't deal with any of that crap because I went, I know how to farm. I know how to garden. If I was outside, what would I do? All I'm doing is mimicking outside, inside, and all the VPD and all of this stuff starts to get to be way too much. Is it hot and humid? Plants don't like that. Cool it off or get rid of the humidity. Great. I know that weed outside doesn't care if it's 110 degrees. It does great. It doesn't wilt. It doesn't melt. It doesn't have any issues at all if it's in ground. If it's in a pot, we have a different situation because the root zone is what matters. So the second I started thinking all that, and we moved into beds out of pots. We stopped changing soil every time. We just started amending. We started top dressing. I watered with our water that came out of a well from the side of the hill. It's got contaminants. It's hard water. It's full of magnesium, and I don't even know what I had it tested years ago. I don't remember anymore. Didn't matter. None of that mattered. Those plants did not suffer. They did great. Everything does great in ground. You give it more soil, things balance out, and you can simplify this system. I mean, immeasurably. It just gets so much easier. Why am I going off on this? Where did this come from?
Well, you're going off on it because it's really good to note that, like, I am an in-ground grower. The minute I went to pots, my plants went to pot.
Yep.
But yeah, they really did. So that's why I don't want to come back indoors. I have all my friends that grow indoors, and DK has an amazing garden. He's growing indoors right now, by the way. He does have a
Not
really
as
good
nice as the outdoor one.
Yeah, but the outside, it's so easy to take care of, right? It's so much easier for me. For me.
But the thing is, you can replicate that inside too. So the company, check out Brinkerhoff Family Farms on Instagram. Okay, they're in Colorado. Chris and I are on their advisement team, and they're doing strict KNF in Colorado in this greenhouse. They did soil building with Leighton Morrison from Kingdom Aquaponics.
That was when he came in and chimed in. He was actually there at that farm, right? Yeah. Yes. Okay.
He helped them build their beds. So they built these huge cedar beds, and he prescribed this much rock, and then a layer of this, and then a layer of this, and then sand, silt, and clay, and then your topsoil and your IMO3 or IMO4, and the whole thing. And I mean, it is an amazing, first of all, the facility is gorgeous, but the plants are just, they were 6 weeks old from seed, and they were 4 feet tall. I was like, holy cow, I've been growing for a really long time, and I've been growing outside for a really long time. And there is something to be said for being able to put that plant from a seed into the ground it's going to be growing in and never moving it. And it was...
Exactly. And speaking of which, we're going to have Dragonfly Earth Medicine be coming on. They're coming on Friday night. They just text me Friday night. As of right now, after the tarps are pulled, we're going to have an after tarp sesh with Dragonfly on Friday evening. So it could be anywhere from 8:30 to 9ish. We don't know. So they're going to be coming on after they pull the tarps, and they're going to be spending a couple hours with us and really going down, talking about the Dragonfly Earth Medicine, Dem Pure, that whole thing. Wendy, you're definitely welcome to come back on that. I feel terrible. We've kept you for so long. Do you need? I'm sure you've got farming to get back to, or are you?
No.
Okay.
I don't today. This is why today I'm at home. Cool. I'm staying at home. I've got my dog got spayed yesterday, so I planned on today just doing farm stuff for the farm, but at home. So this was the IMO3 pile. Okay. And I've got some
there was a couple more questions in chat. Let's go back to those questions. One of them was about the fir needles. So in the springtime, you just use those little tips that are green, right? For the
bright green FPJ, fermented plant juice. Yeah.
There we go. Red River, thanks for coming in. You're always welcome to join too. He's also one of my brothers that's a grower. He's out in Oklahoma area right now.
Cheers, y'all. Enjoying this lovely cool front we have. It's about 95 today. So that's a cool front.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'll take your 95 and I'll raise you 5, 6, 7 degrees.
I'll just wait. Tomorrow it'll probably be there. It's freakishly cold right now.
Freakishly cold right now. Why? And there was, was there another? Let's see. Am I missing another question? Anybody else see any more questions? Red River or Raptor, did you have a question for Wendy today about specifically a KNF, anything like that, or?
No.
I know. Sorry. I did come up with one more.
That's cool.
What
Go
about
ahead.
that little trick that we talked about, DK, with the your berry ferment, and then Wendy was talking about the vodka. Maybe talk a little bit about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we were talking, right, we were hearing about making an FPJ out of raspberries. And other berries, which tend to be very juicy fruits, right? There's not a lot of like pith. There's not like, if you ran it through a juicer, not much comes out but seeds. And so FPJ is the same, where when you're straining it, really all you have is seeds left. And what in general, an FFJ is going to, which is a fermented fruit juice, okay? Fermented fruit juices are not highly used in natural farming. However, they are used for enhancing the ripening. So because what you're doing is you're taking that concentrated ripe enzymes. So the fruit, and it has to be from ripe fruit, even slightly overripe fruit. So we're not talking about unripe apples or green blackberries or any of that. Those don't have the same enzymatic properties that a ripe piece of fruit does. So you want to take very ripe fruit. It can be bruised, but you don't want to have any like mold or, you know, maggoty. There's little fruit flies that'll like lay maggots in fruit. Like none of that stuff. It has to be, you know, bruised is fine, but damaged is fine, not diseased. That's what I want to say. So,
damaged and not diseased. That's a good
yeah,
saying. I love it. Good
damaged but not diseased. Oh, it's kind of like some of us. So you can take your fruit and you're going to mix it with equal weight of brown sugar. You want to cut it into quarter-sized pieces. If it's a berry, you don't need to cut it at all. You know, do your same thing you would do with a FPJ, a fermented plant juice. Mix it up, let it set for 5 to 7 days, and then extract it. The thing that I have found through all this time is that the fermented fruit juices are very active, and getting them to calm down and get shelf stable is really hard. I mean, like really hard. Every single one I've made, I'm like, it's still like effervescent and bubbling, and like it's frothing over the containers and it's making a mess all over. So in order to get it to mellow out, like for me, I don't want to make it until I need to use it. And I don't use it during the entire flowering phase of cannabis. I will use it about 2 weeks before I'm ready to harvest. That's it. It's a ripening. It has enzymes in it that will help ripen. One of these days, I will get somebody out who can help me do a trial, and we will do a side-by-side. We will start FJ at the beginning of bloom. We'll start another sample in middle of bloom, and we'll do the third sample at the end of bloom, and we'll have a control group where we don't use it at all. And we will test terpene levels, and we will test cannabinoid levels, and we will see if there's any difference. However, I have not been able to pull that off myself, and I don't have a dedicated worker yet that wants to do that. So next year, I'm hoping to get some farm laborers and farm hands that want to actually, do these full trials with me and see what we can have happen. But so for the reason of it being so active, I don't use it until right. I don't make it until right before I use it. However, if you made a big batch and you're having trouble getting it to calm down and you're not ready to use it yet, the idea of step one is you add more brown sugar and get it super saturated. What I found with FFJs in general, it doesn't work. The brown sugar doesn't calm it down. You can't super saturate it enough. I'm watching brown sugar fall out of solution and it's still foaming over. So you add vodka. So go ahead and add a hefty glug or two of vodka to your FFJ to get it to stop the fermentation process. And it'll calm down. And then you can, when you add it to water, at your ratios, it comes back alive and it does what it needs to. But again, it's not really a product that you're using a ton of, and you don't use it often. So smaller batches before you're ready to use, rather than one large batch that you're going to use throughout the rest of the year, is what I have found to be the most effective for use, because otherwise you end up with, FFJ that just, it boils over, you lose it on the counter, and then I end up, putting it on everything because I just have to get it out.
Well, and that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, even the amount of stuff that I just made the other day, I realized how much amount that I really made. Now I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it in my lawn and I'm going to put it all over here because I really don't have a farm like you do. Um, so, like, I think it's really cool, you know, that you're willing to go down that rabbit hole and you're going to be doing those experiments in the future and the side by sides. I think those studies need to be done. I think the more, you know, the more as you get out, the more info as we get shared with you and people surrounding you, then word gets out that Wendy wants to do these studies. There's going to be people come finding you because believe me, I'm sure if I was anywhere close, I'd be at your farm in a heartbeat, girl. That California is so far away, man.
Got
Ugh.
that right, Tara.
Yeah. So, Raptor, did you have a question? Go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, it was more of a. I found a spot on my friend's hemp farm. He actually lives. His property has a little stream that goes through it, and I was wondering if I could. I already took a video and everything. I would do this off air, but if I could send Wendy that, and if she could show me, you know, it's like, oh, at 32 seconds or whatever, do it there in the middle or whatever. So yeah, that's the only thing, because I've been wanting to get into IMO, and I got permission from my farmer friend, and I even offered to do a little more. So if there's a couple of good spots, I don't mind making more little IMO crates. So yeah, it's really cool. Everyone I show that video to is just like, wow, you're so lucky to work there. But that's just a small stream on the side. Everywhere else is, you know, basic farm. You breathing on all the dusty horse manure, the dried up stuff. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you so much, Wendy. You really made me reconsider some things, and I feel like everything's so serendipitous with this. Like, I got to talk to you about it, and I have this cool spot not too far away from me. It's still within my indigenous. I'm pretty sure it would be close enough for the indigenous micro zone. It's just like a 45-minute drive from me. So it's in San Diego where he's from, and I'm like within the same inland distance, but yeah, not too far from the sea. So yeah, I've been
So Raptor's basically asking like so he lives in a city and he has permission from a friend that lives how far away, you were saying?
He lives 45 minutes south of me.
45 minutes south.
Yeah.
So would that be a good direction to go collect an IMO? And you took a video of it to where you're thinking about going and doing it, right? Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah. I won't take up Wendy's time with it now. I'll just send it to her when
send
she's
it to her and then have her look at it and see what she thinks. Perfect. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll follow up with that. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'd love to show it, and then she can even point. I could even take a better like still pictures and of a before
well, what
and
would be
after.
cool is to have her give you an idea where to go find it, or you go
Exactly,
get four boxes and then report back to us where was the best place you thought it was collected as well, right? Doing your own research.
From all the hints you guys were giving me with what you were saying with that grass, where how you found that IMO and that old grass pile, the dried up one. I would have thought like, oh, this is full of IMO. You know, you so restricted with like it needs to be a tree. Like, no, it's everywhere. It's indigenous. It's everywhere.
It's best from trees. It's best from trees that are sweet. But the reality is you know, it's you're adding to your diversity, and we've also seen that places that don't that. So when you think about successional growth, right? So the way that forests are created, they start as a field in general, and then you have you've got your first layer of grasses, which are, you know, invasive, and they got all this other stuff going on. And then you have other grasses that begin to grow. And then you have shrubs, and then you have underbrush, and then you have small trees, and then you have big trees. And this takes, you know, forever to get there, right? But it doesn't mean there's no indigenous microorganisms in that first succession of grass. There's still stuff there, but it's not exactly like if we can get those older ones coming, then we have the diversity that takes longer, it's slower to develop, and it's a different type of diversity than we have in those grasslands. So ideally, yeah, big old trees are best, but that doesn't mean it's the only. So what I was saying too earlier was that I went out this IMO collection right here, which is probably one of my best ones to date. And I actually did a side-by-side of brown rice and white rice. I had brown calrose and white calrose. And I was kind of wondering if there would be any difference. The white calrose collection was compost, and the brown calrose was one of my best.
Speaking of which, someone thanked you for bringing up that earlier about the rice experiment. So I think it was Hetty that mentioned that. So they're paying attention to you. So Wendy, go ahead.
Oh God. Do as I do, not as I say. No, do as I say, not as I do. Oh shoot. So, and I mean, I literally had the two boxes butted against each other. And when I collected, the white was, like I said, it was garbage, and the brown was gorgeous. So you don't know really. That's why it's really good if you have a lot of boxes and you can put things side by side. This one was wetter. This one was drier. This is brown rice. This is a white rice. This is basmati. This is calrose. And you can start dialing in for your environment and your farm what works best for you. I might change to brown calrose entirely because it was such a good collection, but I don't know. I'll have to keep trying. And if that holds true over the next half dozen collections, then I'm good. I'm done. I don't need to mess with the white anymore. I would prefer to use brown anyway. So again, this is a brown rice calrose, brown calrose IMO2. And this was taken, my notes say summer, hot, dry, near perfect collection under old growth oak tree. And this is an oak tree that's on my farm. It is like one of my favorite trees. It's by itself. So this is not a forest collection. There's no deciduous other anything's going on. It's in a field. It's on a slope. It's got field all around it, and it's just there at the edge of the tree line, and it's by itself, and it's huge, and it's just a beautiful tree. And I had been wanting to collect under it for a really long time, but just, I don't know why, I just had never gotten around to it. But this time I knew. I was like, I know where I'm going. I'm not going to take a forest walk through my farm. I have this, I want that tree. And I was teaching a couple guys that had come up to volunteer from Sacramento, and they're like, oh, we'll come and help you on your farm. And, we'd love to do whatever you're doing. I'm like, cool, right on. I'm going to do an IMO collection. Let's, cause I know you guys have had trouble with this. Let's get you going. And both of them and my partner Doug were like, well, maybe we should go down by this creek because it's more moist down there. Isn't that a better spot to collect? And I'm like, no, I like the tree. I'm going for the tree. And as we're sitting there discussing, a swarm of wild bees flew by and went over to the tree and hovered around the tree for like a minute and a half and took off. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, that's Mama Nature saying the tree is it. Go for the tree. And again, this is at the beginning of August, right? It had been in the upper 90s for like weeks. It was so hot. It was so dry. It's on my Instagram. It's fairly recent. And I posted the pictures of what we found within 3 seconds. I walked up to the tree, I sat down, and the guys were kind of scrambling around. They're like, I don't, what are we looking for? And I'm like, well, something like this. And I reached down and just like moved the leaves and a little bit of the grass aside. And it was like, white mycelium running everywhere. It was thick. It was huge. It was so wide. You could pick it up and like bounce it and it wasn't breaking. Just absolutely phenomenal. And even with that amazing spot, the box of white rice was still a failure. So, there's something about getting all of these things just perfect, where if you can have more than one box and more than one location, you've got a lot better chance of getting something good out of it and learning from it. This one I had wetter, this one was brown, this one was this one was, give yourself a couple variables in there, a variable in your rice itself. And then as far as the stream goes, it's not necessarily about finding a stream or a wet spot. This was on a hillside, super hot, super dry. Like it was really, you know, a place that people are like, no, there's not going to be mushrooms growing there. I'm like, oh yeah, there will
Was
be.
this the pic you're talking about, Wendy, on your Instagram?
Yeah, so that's the brown rice. And there's some like white powdery stuff. There was a lot of ants in the box. So they were in there farming the fungi and eating and stuff. But if you go, forward a little bit, see that? Those big wads down below. Backward, not forward. Sorry, up, down.
One with the 174.
Yeah, that would. Go back. There, stop.
Yeah.
Next to the one you picked. Yeah, that one.
Okay,
either one of those.
Both
of those. So that is what I found within seconds of just moving the grass aside. So that was the brown rice box as we set it in. And you can see there's a few fungal mycelium that I actually picked those out of the ground, got all the dirt and dust and stuff off. But you can go ahead and set some of those in your box. I did that with both the white and the brown. And again, the white didn't take and the brown did. So then if you go to the next one over, yep. That's what we were finding. Okay, so we're talking 95 degrees under a tree in a field, no stream anywhere near, no water course, no moisture. I mean, that stuff was dry. And
on
it was
August
just,
1st, from what it looks like from the post. So super
1st.
close to now. I don't know what temperature it was, but I was really curious. I was like, I can collect this any time of year. Tree. I've heard after rains is probably best, but any time of year.
After rain is actually not my favorite time because you have more anaerobic activity. So
not after rain,
interesting.
Really? Wow, okay.
Thank you.
I mean, generally I wait until it's the same thing with FPJ, 24 hours after it rains. You want to avoid it for about a day because all the microbes have washed off. And what I found is that I don't get good collections after it rains, as good of collections after it rains. So this was collected. The box was put out on the 1st and I collected it on the 5th. So it was out for 4 days basically. And I mean, it was just, I really love that tree now.
And it's just amazing. I've haven't been doing organics forever, but started off in the little 5-gallon pot, moved to a 5-gallon smart pot, then I started doing organics, figured out that's not enough. Got the 10-gallon, got the 15-gallon. Now I'm at 30-gallon. I'm looking to get beds now because, like you said, the bigger the better. I mean, you need that buffer and room for everything to do what it needs to do, and it's, I can't wait to get new beds now and put old dirt in it, or no, old soil, not dirt. I keep saying dirt. It's not dirt.
Yeah, it's definitely beds are so, Scott Scamas, I'm sorry, Scott, I can't pronounce your last name. Scottola Granola did a run, what am I trying to say? He checked it out a while ago. There's maybe last year or the year before, I think, where he took samples from the same farm, I believe it was, and they did a trial of different sizes, and they were trying to figure out how big of a pot do you really need to have a really balanced living soil. And what they found was that 65-gallon was it was okay, but not great. But anything lower than that, and it was not good. So you need to have at least a 65-gallon pot in order to actually have a living soil that is a balanced living soil. And even then, it was okay, but it wasn't phenomenal. But once they got up into the beds, it was like, oh, we went from there's some stuff going on, but there's no nematodes and there's no we didn't see any amoeba and we didn't see any, and there were still some ciliates in there, and it's okay, it wasn't great. Up into the beds where it's like, okay, there's tons of nematodes, there are, testate amoeba and star amoeba and all kinds of other amoebas going on, and there's, flagellates, but there's no ciliates, which is really good. It means you don't have a lot of anaerobic areas, and it was just, for me, it was one of those we actually have some definitive data that 65 gallons or larger is really what you need to have a really good living soil. And in that point too, I always think about plants and kind of, I anthropomorphize them a little bit and think about human beings. And it's really telling right now with, you know, everything that's going on with all the shelter in place. And, you know, I don't like the word quarantine because we're not quarantined unless we're sick. So we're not quarantined, but we are sheltered in place and self-isolating. And we're not doing extremely well as a species with that protocol. Thank God we have technology. Otherwise, I think the majority of us would be stark raving lunatics at this point.
Thank God
But I
for
really
Zoom.
I know, really. I'm like, I love you guys. We're all together, even though we're not. But plants are the same. You know, when you go out into nature, yes, there is one big, huge oak tree in a field of grass on the edge of a tree line. And that one is obviously a little bit more antisocial in the tree world. It doesn't really want to be in the middle of the party. It's on the outskirts, but it's still involved. And, you know, if you have a plant in a pot and it's all by itself, it's just not, again, there's just an imbalance there. It's not, for me, when we were indoors growing in those 3-gallon pots, I didn't like it. It wasn't really that fun. It was like, God, watering every single one. And now I'm bringing this energy of like, oh, I'm so irritated because it's so hard to reach that back corner. And this stupid wand is too long and I have to have it that long to reach the back corner. But now I'm bonking plants and I'm hitting the light and I'm like, you know, it was just not great. And then we put beds in and then you put drippers in and then you're like, I'm not even watering anymore. I'm just down here making sure the system is going and hanging out with the ladies and pruning a little bit and maybe putting some bugs out. And, you know, like now my energy is better. Now I'm enjoying it more and my plants are all communicating with each other. So that plant in that 3-gallon smart pot, I don't think that plant's a happy plant. I don't think I'm a happy person dealing with that unhappy plant in that unhappy little pot all isolated by itself. You get outside, you start doing companion planting, you start thinking about, you know, just the way that plants communicate. We know that they communicate. We know that trees talk to each other through their roots. We know that they work as a community with fungi and other microbes. We know that they're all helping each other. Like, we don't understand the extent of it, but we know that this is happening. So when you take that plant and you self-isolate it by itself, it's just, you know, there's just no longevity in that, in my opinion. Like, that's not a great system that's gonna, you know, be sustainable. So if we're going inside anyway and under lights anyway, let's do it the very best we can. Let's build beds. Let's get living soil. Let's be as close to nature as we can with a fake light. I'm down.
do what we can, right? That's all you can do is what you can do.
Yeah,
the more you learn about it, the more you realize everything we need is right there. It's provided. We just have to tune into it, slow down, and learn from it. And the design is amazing. I mean, I'm just blown away every time I learn something new about how this all works and how it's supposed to work. And when you go with that, I mean, it's the way things are supposed to be. You know, you just know. And the cannabis plant is opening up so many doors and teaching so much that it's going to carry all around agricultural. You know, I mean, to me, that's what I'm seeing. It's amazing. I mean, it's really what we've been given, all the tools. We just need to slow down and understand it and work with it instead of try to copy it and, you know, mimic it and all this stuff. And, you know, it's just amazing. I'm just every day I'm blown away with what we learn out there.
I love that too. And I was saying earlier too that, you know, cannabis people really like to we really like to muddle with systems, and with indoor it got brought to this level of like every single little thing was being and brought him to these concerns. And like it just, I mean, I just remember like, you know, now that people are moving outside from inside, which is awesome and amazing and great, but they're still bringing this system ideology of like, you have to pay attention to your EC and you've got to pay attention to pH. And what's the pH? The pH of my soil is 8.5. I'm freaking out. I'm like, calm down. One pH in my water to try. Yes, it's a lot of micromanaging of all the systems. And I'm like,
where did we get with that system in corn and soy?
Right.
You know, that's exactly where they're trying to bring it, and I just hate it. You know, people are saying, "Oh, I don't, I do indoors and LED, but other than that, I don't run AC. I just have a fan to keep things moving."
Yeah.
And it's super hot right now, and they're just loving it. They're just like, "Oh,
Yep.
whatever." Every summer, everyone asks me, "Oh, how's that summer run?" I mean, it's a little more out of control because you're letting nature, you know, come in through the window. But yeah, I love it to just watch everything grow. Like 1 week is just a crazy difference if you just take a picture from each week. That's what I try to do, and I just love seeing the progress in it, just letting everything come in like just let go. If I have a, it's so funny that you said 65 gallons, because that's to the last gallon exactly what I have. I was like, no way. I was like, what's the biggest thing I could fit in this freaking 3x3? All right, yeah, this 32 inches, it'll work. You know, just tap it in a little on the sides. But yeah, and I think that
work really good.
yeah, I think that's what made it work. The whole, like, I was able to do it in the summer, like where other people are just like, "Whoa, I have to have it has to be 76 degrees, and it has to be 65% humidity, 60%." You know, the whole VPD. Going back to that, and just like, does it really? Go outside, go outside,
Yeah.
and see how that is. It swings constantly from second to second. There's all these little microclimates that they're not even thinking of either. That's underneath their feet.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's every single time that, not every single time, but the majority of the time that I see problems in plants, they're in pots, and they're in smaller pots. They're not in large pots. And you know, and almost always it's the conversation I watch where it's, you know, these are very knowledgeable people. I'm not saying they don't know what they're talking about. I'm just saying they're looking at things from an indoor perspective, which is different than when we do outdoor, and it's not living soil. And that is different because you're not, when we go outside and we really get into organics and we get into natural farming, and we're getting into, again, this ability for your plants to communicate, and we're getting into, you know, the soil food web. What we're doing is we're allowing nature to really work very precisely with the plant itself. The plant is telling the soil everything it needs, and everything in the soil responds in kind and says, here you go. So when we go inside and we go into small pots, we can't do that because it doesn't work. So we have to start getting very into this engineered, non-natured, very not natural environment where, like, you know, the light cycle becomes very important. And, you know, we have the lumens and the reds and the blues, and, you know, are you turning things on and off and mimicking the sun coming up and the sun going down, or are you just flipping them on and off, or whatever's going on? And you're using nutrients that you're feeding your plant because it's not in the soil, because you, even if it's in the soil, you don't have the microbes there in order to farm it efficiently in general if you're in a small pot. So now we have to change our soils out because we've added nutrients, which have created salt lockups, which create pH imbalances, which create EC imbalances, which creates just a mass of problems. So it's different inside in small amounts. But like you were saying, if you do one large pot, you know, you've got a 3x3 area and you're managing to do a living soil system. I have a lot of people that say, well, I only have one light. I've just got this little tent. I'm like, so build a little bed that fits in the bottom of your little tent, put your little tent on top of your little bed so you don't lose any height. You're good to go. You can do it. You can do it.
How many plants can one grow in that? What do you think? What's your thought?
And it depends on how long the cycle you want to run. You know, I mean, are you doing one cycle per year? You probably have one plant. That's actually, you probably can't even fit one plant if you're doing one cycle for 12 months. I think you get too big. But, you know, if you're doing a quick turn and burn and you're doing it from clone, you could easily, a 3x3, you could fit 9 plants in that. If you want to do them longer, you could fit 5. If you want to veg for a little bit more, you could go to 3. I mean, it's really one of the beauties of the cannabis plant is it is so easily manipulative because it is photosensitive. So you can run a short cycle, you can run a long cycle. You could do, you know, are you pheno hunting something out? Do you want to grow seeds? Like, do you want to, you know, I mean, do you need your medicine now, or do you have enough to wait for later? you know, people really, I think that there's a real freedom that you can embrace when you're growing cannabis. Where really you get to
a
do
good
what
point
you want.
though. We do have a lot of Canadian growers in here. So like grow your 4 in Canada, right? A 4 would fit perfectly in this size. You know, just talking like a simple 4, right?
Yeah, I just like to say with experience, like, yeah, you could for sure get some full get your limits in there. And you could also do what Wendy was saying, maybe have like 3 separate tents, or like just have one big tent system and make it a little bigger, you know, and have what would have been in a 3x3 just in one big pot for one plant. Or you could have multiple and fit those 9 she was saying all spread out.
Yeah.
Uh,
and you can do low stress training, so you can tie them down. You can bend them over.
Allegedly. I forgot. Yes.
I mean, you know, yeah. I'm in California. I'm pretty lucky. We get 6 personal use, and then I have a legal farm. So
yeah,
we do.
She has how many acres?
Well, the ranch is 160 acres.
Wow, that's awesome, lady.
We currently have under cultivation 18,000 square feet. And then we were supposed to get another 20,000 this year for our dry farm, but the county kind of did a, you know, wonderful Humboldt 2-step with me, and so it got delayed another year. But we are just about to get our local permit, which means I'll be able to apply for state, which is a huge, huge deal. So next year, we will be scaling up with a additional 20,000 square foot dry farm that'll go full term. So we'll over double what we have going right now. So we'll be running plant count there's 96 plants in our full term garden. We run 1,500 plants in each light depth twice a year. So that's 6,096. And then the dry farm will take about another 1,500. So I lost count. A lot of plants.
A lot, yeah.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome that you're growing that many and getting to do side-by-side tests and all these studies. Man, that like the work though, you know, it's not easy. A lot of people don't realize the time in and out. Like, you know, she's at the farm early in the morning until late at night. They're out pulling tarps right now. A lot of people are out at dusk doing all these tarps right now, and we forget about, you know, all of those things that also go on at the farm.
Yeah, we don't pull tarps at night. We do early morning. So if you're doing, and again, this comes from experience. We've done it all. We tried the easy way first, right? So the easiest way is like you pull at 7 o'clock at night and you reopen at 7 a.m. because, you know, that's easy. 7 a.m., 7 p.m. You're around, you're up. It's not a, you know, horrible time frame, but your plants are covered all night long. We set up this whole system of ducting and fans so you could keep the air moving. It's okay. It's not great. You get more mold and mildew. It's a problem. Yep. And then we moved from that to let's just pull tarps at night. So we were pulling at like 6 p.m. and then opening up after dark. But the light is still hitting. It's still hot out, right? 6 in the evening, it's still hotter than it is in the morning. So really what we've come to is when you can, you know, get the cojones to get up super early in the morning and just do it right. The right way to do it is to pull the tarp before it gets light out and close it up, and then open it up 12 hours before sunset. So you're constantly tracking and you're like, okay, it gets dark at 8:30 p.m. That means I'm closing at 4 a.m. and I'm opening at 8:30 a.m. And that way you're not getting the heat and humidity inside of your tent, and you're not getting we don't really have botrytis anymore. We haven't dealt with powdery mildew in years. We haven't dealt with any botrytis really in years either, now that I think about it. I can't remember the last time I had bud mold at a level that I was like, oh my God.
That's pretty amazing to be able to say, living where you live and what people deal with on large scale. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we always get a little bit, but, you know, I mean, for what we're growing, our loss is less than 1%, I would imagine. I'll know for certain with track and trace this year. Yay. But but yeah, it's definitely a superior way to do your tarping if you really want to have a really high quality product at the end and lose, you know, very little to these diseases and pests and things that tend to be so common. But it's hard, you know, you're up early and it's not the most fun in the world. If you've got auto dep tarps and stuff and you're not hand pulling like us, then it's a lot easier to just schedule it, but still out there muscling it.
That's a labor of love for sure.
It definitely is. Well, you know, I think we've kept everybody long enough. This has gone, I don't even know how long we've been on air. I can't believe we've been going on this long. But man, I have learned so much today, and I'm definitely going out tomorrow morning. I'm going to get my butt up, and we're going to go get some collection. And now I know what part to collect, and now I know not to collect my stinging nettle. It's already done, right? So, like, those were all nice tips that I learned today, and I could have wasted time.
Only the tips, 6 inches most.
Yeah. Like that's really cool. So after things are flowered, after things are not in their seed, you don't want to go get that, you know, blah, 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 so on and so on. Maybe we should have a follow-up with just talking maybe just about those once we collect them, DK, and we'll show people what they look like, I guess.
Sounds good to me.
Something what we're doing. We'll at least show people if we did it right or wrong. I don't know what I'm doing here. So, well I don't care. I'll show my mistakes. What the heck, right?
Hey, I've got plenty of them on my Instagram. I don't hide it. I'm like, you'll learn more from my mistakes than you do from my successes, I guarantee.
That's the point. We're supposed to learn together.
I was about to say, I learned a lot from mistakes. So
there you go. Well,
Chris is always saying, Chris is always saying, Wendy, can I throw you under the bus? I'm like, dude, I live there half the time. Toss me under. I have no problem. I have no shame. I'm not going to act like I do everything right all the time. I spent years doing it wrong. I can tell you, if you do natural farming wrong, you'll still be okay for the most part. I burnt the crap out of plants once. I used to do IMO incorrectly. I spread FPJ out without knowing what I was doing and had a wonderful, wonderful harvest of ants that year. You know, but through all of that, I really started to learn the processes and how to do it right. And I have no shame or guilt in any of the mistakes I've made. Every one of them has had a great thing that came out of it. So it's been a wonderful lesson there. So, yeah,
definitely.
But I bet you'll be fine. I think your FPJ will be amazing. I think that you'll get into it, and pretty soon you're gonna be like, all right, what's next?
Well, you know, I got you pros inspired me. I got to do this stuff. You know, I see your farm and everything that's going so good. All you guys regenerative farmers out there, and I'm so lucky to have traveled to the regenerative conference and met you and hung out with you and had that opportunity. Because like we're saying, Chris Trump's thing at the end of the month, who knows if it's going to be here next year? We don't know, you know, it's hard to say what's going to happen from time to time. You know, I'm lucky I got out to that 420 event and got out to the regenerative conference because there obviously wasn't one this year, you know, and things aren't, the Emerald Cup's not happening this year. And there's so much. And so, do get out in your community, get out in places, because you don't know when it's going to be your last time. That's a good message.
And quick plug for Thursday the 20th at 1:00. We are doing there's a Zoom conference webinar thing, and it will also be on, so there's a wonderful lady named Carrie Reynolds, and she has started a group. We actually all started it together, but then everybody except for her got too busy. So she's solely now in charge of the Shore Center, which is the Southern Humboldt Organic Regenerative Education Center. And she has a Facebook page, and I think I posted it on my page too, but we're going to be doing a webinar Zoom linky thing on hugelkultur. So if anybody's interested in the ultimate raised bed gardening system, there's a wonderful co-presenter and myself, Kelly Compost is going to be on there, who is just phenomenal. She got me super inspired to do seed balls with my preschool years ago. And so she'll be presenting and I'll be presenting. We'll go for probably an hour to 2 hours, and we'll teach you guys all about hugelkultur, which is raised hill gardening. And what you're doing is, again, it's a mimicking nature. So you're burying wood. And I have 3 hugel beds here at my home property. So I'll be showing you guys those live. And Kelly will be talking about a lot of the tips and tricks on how to build a bed properly, which is stuff that, like, when I built mine, I didn't even know. we were talking today, and she was like, oh, like this. And I'm like, oh, that's so brilliant. I had no idea. A 6 foot tall lasts for a year. You don't have to water it for a year. A 3 foot tall one will go for 3 months without water. This makes so much sense. So it's gonna be some really good information.
Because I actually have a tree we just cut down too, and we were gonna make some hugels. So now you can, I'm not gonna make mistakes here again. You're gonna save me some more. Yes. Cool. Well, thanks for that plug. Again, tell everybody what time it is and when.
It's on Thursday the 20th, starting at 1 o'clock. And I will repost today on my Facebook page, and I'll put something on Instagram as well on how to sign up for the live Zoom. Will also be recorded, and then it'll be on the video of the Shore Center's page, I believe is what Carrie has decided to do. And whenever that's done and up, I'll make sure that a link gets on there too, so you guys can watch and learn how to hugel correctly, even though I don't think there's a wrong way, but there are definitely better ways.
Yes, I love it. And we'll try and remember to put the link under this video too, to try and tie it back in for everybody. I try to remember to go back and do that for everybody. Again, this has been Cannabis. We've hung out with her all day. It's been about her making the IMO3, and we've got to question her all day. Oh my gosh, her brain is just, woo, I love it. Thank you for hanging out with us again. DK Trades, did you have any last thoughts?
No, that's all good. Thank you so much. I can't wait until next time and get to hear a little garden update, but this was an amazing time. Thank you so much for walking us through and being so critical.
Awesome. And with that, again, Red River and Raptor, thanks for joining us. And with that, I'm going to close down the live stream. And thanks for joining us, everybody in the audience. We'll see y'all again. Peace.
Cheers, y'all.